And there we go. We are live on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I am joined today by two absolute beauties, two guys kind enough to grace us with their presence on the channel. A big hello to Phoenix MMA and LiamPicksFights. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good, man. Excited to be here. Thanks for the invite. Talk some fights. Pretty good card. Some low-level fights that should also be entertaining. Some decently high-level fights too. It's just good to talk about them.
Yeah, man, this card feels like it's a little out of order, huh, boys? You got the shittier fights with the less talented fighters at the top, and then you've got the, real bangers are starting off the night. So it's an interesting fight card, man. I'm really looking forward to breaking this one down and feel good about some spots on here. So let's hope for violence, boys. That's what I'm believing in.
Yeah, man, the big thing is it is the Ultimate Fighter finale, and that's the thing. Did any of you guys keep up with it the whole season?
No.
Didn't keep up with it at all. Watched every fight this weekend.
Really? I would. I've watched every episode, man. I watch it Wednesday mornings, right after it aired. Have it recorded, and honestly, there were some bangers this year, bro. There were some good yeah. I know you guys probably missed out on some of them because they weren't finalists, I think, for some of the good fights, but there was violence. So, yeah, I mean, without further ado, man, I think we just get right into it. We had a good weigh-ins today. Only one miss, which we'll talk about later. Actually, no, we're going to talk about it right now because it's the first fight of the night. We have Mana Martinez versus Guido Canetti. Two absolute clashes in styles. We have someone in Martinez making his debut, has all of his finishes in the very first two rounds, all his wins by finish, versus someone in Guido Canetti who's been finished in all 5 of his losses. This comment by Mr. Frank Newman sums it up. Violence at its finest right there. I'm going to kick it off to you first, Phoenix. What do you think about this first fight, and does the weight miss affect anything? Because I know you got a bet on it.
Yeah, this is actually my I have only bet of the night is on this fight that I found any value, and I got hopefully. 2 units, -175, under 2.5 rounds. I just think that I find it very hard to see this fight going 3 rounds. It's probably not even going to go 2 or 1 even, but I just feel that Mana Martinez, right? Especially if you're on the Mana Martinez side, you've got to obviously think that he's going to finish this fight. I mean, 100% finish rate versus a guy that's been finished in all of his losses, and he's the bigger guy, right? He's the much bigger guy. I think the weight miss is makes me feel even better about the bet. I mean, I feel maybe he's going to be packing some more power now. Just the fact that he's probably going to have more power. Maybe he gasses more if the fight gets extended. And I think that, Canetti's durability has been questioned. That, he's been dropped a lot in his recent fights. His striking defense isn't that great. I think that in order for him to win this fight, he's probably going to have to get the wrestling going. I just don't know if he can, but he on the feet too. He's like someone that's very explosive too. I mean, he had like a really good start against Marlon Vera, good start against Kang too. Like he throws a lot into his punches. He's kind of aggressive, but I just think this is a really good violence spot. I opted for the 2.5 because I do think it could finish in the second round, and I just don't want to be on the wrong side of like a 2-minute 31-second round 2 mark. So I got the violence here, and I think it's a pretty comfortable spot.
Yeah, man, I completely agree, honestly. I got a bet on it, but I'm going to let Liam go first. Liam, what you got?
Sure, man. I got a couple of bets on this one, if I'm telling you the truth, man. And I was a little concerned when I heard about the weight miss, but I talked myself off the ledge. I went back and looked. He's missed weight before on the regionals as well and knocked the guy out. So that gives me a little bit more confidence. And, he gets a 4-pound advantage, cheated on the way in. And so, in fairness, I'd much rather have my money on the cheater than the person being, wronged by this foul in advance of the contest. And I've been on the wrong side of that before too. Yana Kunitskaya, who probably was pregnant while she was out there too, just blowing my bets right out of the water. Thank you very much. But man, I really think that this is a setup fight. I think that, Mana Martinez, only red flags that I see are the weight miss. I think that a lot of people took away from the fight that he lost, that split decision early in his career, that he probably didn't have cardio. And I actually just don't think that that's the issue of the fight. If you go back and watch it, he is normally like a longer, taller guy for the division, and he was fighting a guy with like insane reach, insane length, who was kind of styling on him with like weird kicks from out at range. It was a weird fight. I don't think it had as much to do with cardio. I think Mana Martinez, if he's able to get off on punches, is just a devastating puncher. Not the most physical athlete, not the greatest wrestling defense that I've ever seen, but Guido Canetti, I feel like, doesn't have great cardio. We've seen him get dropped in 4 of his last 4 losses. If Marlon Vera wanted a knockout, he has a knockout there instead. It's like he just was pursuing a finish aggressively, and he is a guy who would take a submission. He could have easily just pounded him out with shots there. Guido was ready to go. So I think that, this is a setup fight. I also think if you're playing Guido Canetti here, you're probably banking on him to ride out a decision in all likelihood. Mana, I can't recall that he's been finished off the top of my head. I know he lost that split decision, but
he got subbed.
Oh yeah, so there you go. But man, I don't know. Guido Canetti, kind of his only wins in the UFC, he rode out ugly ride out type decisions wrestling, and he's supposed to be a kickboxer. So it's like I don't know exactly what his best skill set is. Obviously, he can hit, he can crack on the feet. But he's 41. This is a huge age gap and a bunch of other anthropomorphic advantages on the side of Mana Martinez. So I have him 1 unit by knockout plus 125. That's sitting at minus 110 on most books right now. I have under 1.5 rounds at plus 110 for 0.91 units. I have it at plus 120 for 0.29 units. And I feel like this is a big violence spot. I think that the under covers me in the off chance that Mana Martinez doesn't show up like himself. He did lose his coach and a couple other, outside the cage type things, but I feel like it's going to serve as motivation. I feel like he's going to come in here and dust this guy fast like he's supposed to. And I don't know that he's going to do that in all of his UFC fights, but I think that Guido Canetti is kind of, the UFC is looking to give him a way out. And I think that this is their way of giving him a slip, and I don't like to talk that way about fighters, but he's 41 years old, and it's just, especially at the bantamweight division, insanity, man. I think that this matchup favors Mana Martinez.
Yeah, man. And if you look at the 2 guys that he was supposed to fight prior to this, and Jesse Strader and Trevin Jones, this is a very, very big step down, in my opinion. And I think this is Mana Martinez all day. You said it, though. He has lost his coach. There's been a couple things going on in his personal life. Maybe that is why he missed weight. But in the end of the day, I still think that if he's going to win this fight, it will be by finish, just like Canetti's been finishing all 5 of his losses, which is why I do really like the under, as you picked out as well. I was really, really tempted by just straight Mana Martinez inside the distance. I still get at minus 120. I don't want to lay chalk, even if it's that much, nothing at all, on someone finishing. Instead, I did opt for the fight doesn't go to decision as well. I got to play in that. Parlay piece for me, something, talk about later. But that's what I'm rolling with right now, the under with you guys. I think it's a very popular spot this week, and for good reason on it. I think that this fight is probably going to end inside the distance. And yeah, I'm really liking it here. I think Mana Martinez is the right side. I will be playing him on DraftKings. He's going to be a very, very popular on DraftKings. Very popular option. So I think that's him all day. And the weight miss doesn't scare me that much, because it's not like he looked like he was about to faint or collapse on the scale. Like he looked bigger, and honestly, that should favor him in this matchup here. So I'm with you guys, Mana Martinez. I think he gets it finished probably in the first round. So it does look like a good option to bet him. And money's coming in on Canetti too. So if you guys want that, I mean, I do like the under better than anything else, but I am going to pick Mana Martinez to win this fight. That being said, man, I mean, that was the only weight miss of the day. Pretty big one, but fight goes on. 30% of the purse goes over to Mr. Canetti. But moving right along, a fight that is very, very... I've seen a lot of opinions on both sides this week. Pat Sabatini versus Jamal Emmers. I'm going to throw it to you first, Liam. What do you got in this one?
Nothing. Is the long and short of it from a betting perspective. I feel like I kind of missed the boat here. Man, a lot of people have conviction in this matchup that I don't share one way or the other. I think it's pretty competitive. I think Pat Sabatini has excellent jiu-jitsu. I think Jamal Emmers, he doesn't have bad jiu-jitsu. He obviously has powerful wrestling. He's used it before, but I feel like some of the things I did see, caused a little bit of concern. He got swept by Giga Chikadze. when I went back and watched that tape, and I was like, seriously, man? Because otherwise he looked really good in that fight, and arguably could have won that fight. And if he had better fight IQ, probably could have won all 3 rounds in that fight. So it was interesting, man. When I was going back and revisiting this, and Jamal Emmers strikes me as the better, stand-up fighter of the two by a pretty considerable margin. I don't know that Sabatini is going to be able to, fully implement that grappling game plan. I think he might get takedowns at some point, but I don't know how much control time he's going to be able to establish. If he's able to get a really good position like the back, maybe he's able to ride out a round like that. But I just feel like this is a tricky fight. I feel like minus 145 is like probably somewhere near appropriate on Jamal Emmers because of some of his physical advantages. But I also, don't really want to line up against Pat Sabatini. There was some cause of concern in the Connolly fight, but I do think he's an actual talent. So, man, I'm just going to probably stay away from this fight overall. I think that the under 2.5 was something crazy, like plus 185 or something, which I don't think it has a tremendous chance of finishing, but that just caught my eye because it just seemed a little wide for the division. But, a lot of those featherweight fights have been going over. So maybe it's fair, but that was just something that caught my eye, man. Nothing for me on this.
Yeah, the under right now under 2.5 sitting at plus 190 on certain books. So is a wide line. But yeah, I'll let you go next, Phoenix. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, not much to add. I'm pretty much share a very similar opinion to Liam. I just think it's kind of a binary fight in the sense that I feel like Emmers is clearly the better striker. I think he has the better gas tank. He's the bigger fighter. I couldn't find too much footage on him pre-UFC of him on the ground, so I don't really know too much on that. But Sabatini, I like both of these guys. I think Emmers is and Sabatini are both have decently high upside. And again, if Sabatini can, get on top, get the BJJ going, he could have some success, right? As Liam said, getting reversed by kickboxer Chikadze is a little bit of a red flag, but I do think that I do think Emmers probably can stuff the majority of the takedowns at least and just do more damage on the feet. I think I do rate his striking decently high. And like I said, I just think that, he's got a wrestling background as well. So makes it, and compile that with the fact that he's the bigger fighter, I feel like it might be difficult to get the grappling going. So again, I agree with the line. I think minus 150 is fair for Jamal Emmers, and just see how this fight goes.
Yeah, man. I mean, the line opened up a pick'em on my book. I was thinking about it, and I was really close to placing a bet on Jamal Emmers pre-tape until I realized his fight IQ, and that was the big thing for me. Is I don't like betting on those fighters who can let me down because I want to have my money in someone who's going to execute a good game plan, right? So this is one of those spots where I looked at it, and I mean, you look into it. Sabatini's a Gracie member at Friday Night Gym, and he's got some good credentials. And I mean, if it gets a mat, I do give him a clear advantage on the mat, but Jamal Emmers, I think, is the overall better MMA fighter for different reasons, including those anthropomorphic reasons that you're mentioning earlier. So it's one of those things where I'm going to edge Jamal Emmers. There's going to be no action for me at all because I do think it should be a little bit closer because we have a path to victory such as Savage does in this spot right here because I do favor ground game. I don't know if I'm going to want to pay minus 150 on it. But then again, maybe it could just be a lapse for him in the Chikadze fight. Really, that Emmers is really good on the ground. He lives up to that minus 150%, right? So many unknowns that I don't know. One of these fights with enough fights that I want action on anyways, that this one's really just not catching my eye in any way. With a read like this, I'm going to have barely any shares in DraftKings at all. I don't see really, maybe the unders live for, I mean, I don't really see Sabatini subbing him really, so I guess it'd be one side, and I like both of my fighters to contribute to it. So I'm just going to move along to the next one. If you guys nothing on that one, because the next one, that one is an intriguing one that I've been tweeting out people's opinions with all week. We got JJ Aldridge, I think Vanessa. I'm really bad with names. You guys can't tell. Let's just say JJ versus Vanessa. Women's fight. I got a bit to say on this, so I'm going to let you guys go first. Phoenix, what you got in this one?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say about this fight, to be honest. I don't really want to lay anywhere near the price on JJ Aldrich, but I mean, I think she should win the fight. I mean, she's going to have a pretty big size advantage. I think it's like an 8-inch reach advantage, I think, or something like that. I think Aldrich just faced the better competition. I think she's the better striker. Oh, did we lose him?
I think we did for just a second, but that's all right, man. I'm still hearing you.
Yeah, so
Whoa.
welcome back.
Reception. Welcome back.
Press the wrong button. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah, so I just think she's gonna have the size advantage. I think she's the better striker here, better competition. And Demopoulos, I think she is pretty aggressive on the feet, but I think she's just gonna walk into a bunch of punches. I mean, I don't think she has great striking defense. Her grappling is, I want to say, maybe opportunistic in a way, but I don't think she's great. Again, she's coming up a weight class size disadvantage here, so I don't really have much to say besides that. I mean, the line to me is a little bit whack. I don't really want to lay like anywhere near -400 on a fighter that isn't amazing. But Aldrich has some decent wins, but I just don't really have an interest in this fight.
That seems legit to me. I have some action on this fight, but not from a money line perspective, for obvious reasons. I think Phoenix just laid it out pretty, seamlessly. JJ Aldrich should win this fight, but we're probably not interested in laying JJ Aldrich at the price, right? -400 something. Just not something that I'm interested in doing. Certainly, I don't have enough conviction when betting women's MMA fights to bet -400s unless they're Amanda Nunes, unless they're Valentina Shevchenko. That's it. It's like it's got to be a dominant champion with multiple defenses or something, to even consider a price like that. That being said, I put 0.43 units down, plus 240 on the under 2.5 rounds here. Something that was interesting to me, I had a guest on my show, Al Mac Odds. Shout out to him. But one of the things that he pointed out on the show is that, the under 2.5 rounds hits in the women's flyweights fights at like 40%. So, if it's over 155, you could take a look, right, and be interested in betting the trend. Plus 240. And what we have in this fight is Vanessa Demopoulos, one of the most hittable fighters I've ever seen taping fights. Like men, women, anybody. Like willing to get hit, gets hit in every fight, comes forward to get hit more, won't take no for an answer. Not well equipped for this division. Very small. I think the smallest reach in UFC history, or among the smallest reaches in UFC history. And this is at flyweight, not strawweight. So it's like we're taking somebody with less than strawweight anthropomorphic features and putting them at flyweight. It's like not going to be a good scene. I don't think. I do think JJ Aldrich, that's the reason this line is so absurd, because she should finish, because Vanessa Demopoulos can't help but getting hit, and she's going to be able to do it from very far away. 8-inch reach advantage, and she knows how to punch. So Vanessa Demopoulos, who doesn't know how to punch very well, who doesn't have very good takedowns, if there's one thing I can credit her with, it's that she's willing to try and grapple, but I don't even think that her grappling is that potent. I've seen fights, the Corey McKenna fight, she spends the entire time basically underneath, not getting off a submission. So she has all the time in the world working from triangle to this, that never gets a submission, loses the fight. I'm like, number one, why can't JJ Aldrich do that here? Unless she just has a lapse of, defense from guard, but it should never go there. She should just be able to stand up at any point, keep her at range, be way more physical. I feel like JJ Aldrich is probably going to run away with this and finish her. And so there's two things I feel like that are in my advantage on this bet, which is number one, we have a massive favorite. Massive favorites tend to finish. So massive favorite, we've got, a divisional trend that says we should be interested if it's plus 155 or more in at least taking a look. And I see finishing potential on both sides, like you were just talking about. If Vanessa Demopoulos wins this fight, how does she do it? She does it with either a swinging overhand, because she does wing hard punches. She knocked out that one chick in her last fight. And then other than that, it's a Hail Mary sub. And it's probably not a Hail Mary sub with 2.5 minutes left in the third round. It's probably a Hail Mary sub early when they're more dry, would be my thought. because I really don't think she has much to offer on the feet in this matchup. She should be getting picked apart. Her boxing's not technical. So, man, think Aldrich is the side here by a lot. Not to say that I would bet her on the money line. I just mean I don't see a tremendous value in Demopoulos. If I was to play Demopoulos, I would probably do it inside the distance. But I think Aldrich is probably going to piece her to death. And I like the under 2.5 no matter who wins.
See, before I say anything, huge shout out to Z's MMA. He broke it down perfectly. And honestly, I watched that video before I taped and I saw the exact same thing. But I'm on JJ Aldridge. I got a bit greedy. I'm on her to finish at plus 450. Just because there's so many different things going on for her here. Like she's got advantages in size, in competition, in striking. She's facing someone who didn't look very good at all. So I'm not going to say much. I pretty much can refer you to Z's MMA's YouTube channel if you want to learn more about it, because he broke it down perfectly. So shout out to him. But I think when you have a fighter who's minus 400 with the advantages that she does, even though she's not a finisher, she's got some skills to pay the bills. And at plus 450, she could do that very well. I mean, she's knocked down Macy Barber a few times too, and we all know how hittable Vanessa is. She's so hittable, and I really think that JJ Aldridge just pieces her up, finishes her. I hope she's smart enough to stand up, because I do give this slight ground advantage to Vanessa, but I don't think it goes there. I think JJ pieces her up. I think she's a very, very, very sneaky tracking spot, because no one's going to pay that much for JJ Aldridge at what I think she's 9K this weekend. So she's a good sneaky spot if she does finish. So I'm on her all day. I think she's got a lot of potential here. She's got the reach advantage, height advantage, competition advantage, size advantage. Everything's going on with her. And at plus 450, that is so good. So huge shout out to my boy, Ziza Abe. Great spot. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to let him take all the credit for that one. And I'm just going to hope it rakes in, because I agree with everything he said. I'm loving it. And I maybe get a bit greedy compared to your under 2.5, but I think that's her fight to lose all day.
Well, I will just go ahead and give you the credit that I went to look on Bet Online, and it is plus 300 on Bet Online for JJ inside the distance. So you smoked the closer on my book, at least, and I'll just tell you off the rip, man. I think that's a great number. I think it makes a lot of sense. Taking a minus 400, granted, JJ Aldrich not a tremendous finisher, and I do think we should acknowledge that up front. But styles make matchups, and Vanessa Demopoulos is going to do everything in her part to try and get finished. So I think it's important. Man, plus 450, great look, dude. Shout out to you.
Yeah, I've said it like 3 times, but no, shout out to Z's. I mean, he's the one who put me on there before the line moved.
For sure.
Yeah, he did a great breakdown on it. So, yeah, the Canadian brother in arms. So I did agree with everything I said. I watched my tape, I did my research, and I realized that, yeah, I do like that as well, but it was him who helped me beat line movement. So all credit to him. But yeah, I think that it's JJ Aldrich's fight to lose. It's hers all day. Sneaky. I'm actually really looking forward to that fight. Next one up, though, Dustin Jacoby versus Darren Stewart. I mean, you know what? I'm going to pass this one on to myself right away. I think that if Darren Stewart was a proper 205er, I would give him a lot more credit in this spot. I'm not a big fan of Dustin Jacoby. I'm not a fan of him in a lot of. I bet Ankalaba against him. I will continue to bet against him, but I just think Darren Stewart is a bit too small to execute the same game plan that someone else would do on him. I think that Dustin Jacoby has weak ground game, not very good cardio either. I think there's a lot of holes in his game, but he is good at kickboxing, so I will give him that. And unfortunately, I do think that he has a good chance of just piecing apart Darren Stewart in the feet this weekend, stuffing takedowns and winning a fight. So there's no bet on me. I've looked at the Darren Stewart line a lot. I'll tell you that for a fact. But I really think that the size and the, like you said, static fight. So the size and the style it's not going his way. So I'm just going to stick to playing Darren Stewart in DraftKings. Let's go to you, Phoenix. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, pretty much the same as you. This is just a card where I don't really have like too much insight, because I just like agree with everybody else what they're saying. I just feel again that the thing I will say is, so if this fight stays standing, I definitely think Jacoby's the better striker. Right, he throws more volume, so I think he can piece up Darren Stewart here. He's going to be the bigger guy as well. The thing about Dustin Jacoby is he may not have the greatest ground game in the world, but what I did see in the Cutelaba fight is he has a pretty good get-up game, right? And Darren Stewart isn't great, doesn't have great top control, right? He's not a guy that can get these takedowns and then hold you down for a prolonged period of time. So it's very improbable that he's going to showcase a 15-minute wrestling approach here, especially since I don't think his cardio can do that either. And on the feet, I think he is hittable. So I just think Dustin Jacoby's kind of going to just piece him up. If he does get taken down, get right back up and go back to piecing him up. I'm not like crazy high on Dustin Jacoby, but Darren, like you said, Darren Stewart's not really a 205er, like a real 205er. So I just think that, with the size, with the striking advantage, I just think the gap on the feet is going to definitely outweigh the gap that, if there is any gap on the ground. But like I said, again, Darren Stewart may get takedowns, but his top control is not great. I think Jacoby can get up fairly easily and then just go back to piecing him up. So I think the line minus 200 Jacoby is pretty accurate. Yeah.
I would tend to agree with a lot of that. I have a parlay that I'll close out the other part of it on a little later on, but I have 0.7 units on it. So it's not a huge parlay, and it is a plus money parlay. It's to win just less than a unit. So 0.7 to win like 0.9 something, right? But it is on, at least in one part, Dustin Jacoby. And man, it's about the fact that, I started looking into this fight and I wanted something to like about Darren Stewart. I kind of like him personally, and I had him in the first Eric Anders fight, and I was so lucky and glad to get that push. And I was like, man, what happened? Like, I thought he was going to do better at 205, and he looked worse. And then I bet Eric Anders pretty heavily the second time because I was like, Eric Anders is going to whoop his ass. And it was a little bit sweatier than I would have hoped, but he's getting out-wrestled by Eric Anders. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like when he tries to wrestle, he puts himself underneath. Dustin Jacoby is going to be way bigger than him, way stronger than him. Maybe Darren's got some physicality that he could bring to bear, but can he do it the whole fight? I don't know about that either. So, man, I don't know. I feel like my impression of Darren Stewart was so much bolstered by the fact that he took down Kevin Holland and made him look bad. And then I just found out Kevin Holland can be taken down and made look bad by a lot of people. So I'm like, maybe that means nothing. And especially he could only do that when Kevin was exhausted from punching his face off. So I'm like, I think Dustin Jacoby's probably going to punch his face off. I think he's much better on the feet, technically, after rewatching some of their work. And Dustin Jacoby, I was concerned a little bit about his durability because he kind of gets knocked down and stuff. But, man, he's like a very, very tough guy. I don't think he's going to be the type of guy to quit on himself. And I think Darren Stewart's probably really finish reliant in this fight because I think he's going to be losing minutes standing pretty clearly. That's the way I feel about it, at least. So, yeah, I got a small parlay, including Jacoby. I think he's going to win. I got that at minus 185. I think minus 225 is like a fair line on Jacoby. I wouldn't be surprised to see it close around there either. But a lot of people like that Darren Stewart plus money. I've seen people playing it, so maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of like Dustin Jacoby here, and I wanted to limit my exposure on both of the guys that I ended up playing there because I think that they should win, but they're a little chalky, so I was like, let me limit, and I'll pair them together.
The problem is with Darren Stewart was if he was this excellent ground fighter with this great submission game, then yeah, but he's just not that much better to the point where I want to bet him at such a size discrepancy. And that's the big thing here is on the feet, it's Jacoby all day, and the fights all start on the feet. So I can't back a smaller wrestler who might have a problem taking him down here. So I do like Darren Stewart. I want him to win, but I'm not very sure in it.
Can I raise the point, too, that Dustin Jacoby fought Maxim Grishin, who's like a heavyweight, and like came in like a heavyweight for that fight. And he was able to hold up to those punches and to that pressure. And I feel like that's a way different experience than somebody who's so much smaller than he is. Man, think it makes a huge difference. We've seen before, it's one thing to go 10 pounds in either direction, right? 35, 45, 55. They're all, relatively similar sized athletes. When you go from 185 to 205, it's such a massive size gap, and the mass. Like, I just think the power that's generated at that weight class is so much higher. And we saw it. Eric Anders, was able to put that kind of power and pressure on him. I don't think it's a good look for him at 205, man. I think it's a kind of desperate look. I don't think he likes cutting weight. So I think it's probably going to be his exit from the UFC too, unfortunately.
Hey, I love fading Dustin Jacoby, but tonight is not the night for that, unfortunately. I wish it was, but not tonight. DraftKings will be the only action I have on that fight. But Liam, this is your fight coming up. This is a fight that you messaged me about like a week and a half ago that you were hyped on already. The Sam Alvey versus Wellington Turman fight. I'm not going to waste any more time. Talk us down because you killed it on this one.
Well, I really appreciate that, my man. And I didn't kill the line movement as much as I thought, right? Because it's actually been coming back and forth a little bit. But, I will say that I got on it early. I felt confident in it. I was willing to take the play at plus 125. I was willing to take I acknowledged when I tweeted it out. There's red flags on this play. Sam Alvey is 0-5-1 in his last 6 fights. But why is he an underdog to Wellington Turman? Wellington Turman's 1-3 in the UFC, lost to Carl Roberson. So he couldn't out-grapple Carl Roberson efficiently enough to win a fight, which is saying something. Like, Carl Roberson will out-grapple himself. I was kind of stunned to go back and rewatch that, right? Because I didn't remember that fight at all. Then he gets knocked out by Andrew Sanchez, not known for being a power puncher, in the very first round. Okay, no problem. I literally was like, that's an anomalous result. That's what I said to myself. I'm like, okay, I got to bet him as a big underdog now against Bruno Silva. And, whatever it was, plus 125, plus 130. I'm like, man, he's actually got UFC experience. He gets knocked out one time, and people think he's trash. And then he does exactly what I think he's going to do. He gets on the back and then does exactly what he's done in the past, which is fall over the top, lose positions that he already has established, and then gets finished like viciously. That was 2 months ago, dude. That was like 8 weeks prior. So he just got knocked out and then punched like 4 times in his dead carcass. I was like, how are they even sanctioning this bout? Much less like, this is a setup fight, Sam Alvey, there's one thing he can do really good. Back himself onto the cage and throw reactive lead hooks that hurt people bad. Like, that's what he does. Wellington Turman comes forward recklessly and aggressively with his hands down. When he gets hit, he points to his chin that he no longer has. So I'm saying to myself, Sam Alvey is the underdog? I didn't get it. So I'm in on Sam Alvey here, 1 unit at plus 125. I'm in on Sam Alvey inside the distance, 0.36 units at plus 275. And I'm 2 units deep on the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 135, which I think is an insane line. I really do. Because Sam Alvey, what could you say bad about Sam Alvey? Well, he kind of looked like his durability was a little compromised at 185 his last time out against Julian Marquez. Otherwise, what you could say is that he was losing competitive fights to top 15 light heavyweights, despite the fact that he had a massive size disadvantage. And he was very close to stopping Ryan Spann with strikes, who is the number 9 light heavyweight in the world. And on top of that, dude, he fights Dawoon Jung. He's up 2-0. I'm like, guys, are we missing something here? Sam Alvey's a better fighter than Wellington Turman. So if he loses, then Sam Alvey really is shot, but he's 35. And I'm like, 35 at middleweight, that's, not far off the average. I don't know, man. I think that Sam Alvey is below that threshold where I want to start like absolutely fading people when they're 39 and above and they're going to start getting knocked out more frequently. That's when I want to start fading people hard. But it's like 35, he's got better striking. Sam Alvey, the most takedowns anybody's ever got on him was Rashad Evans like several years ago. And Rashad lost, I believe. I'd have to go back and check. If not, it was a split decision one way or the other. It was very close. And Rashad got no control. And Rashad is way better at wrestling than Wellington Turman. Wellington Turman is better at jiu-jitsu than he is at wrestling. So when he gets to a jiu-jitsu position, he's sometimes able to hold it. But it's the reason I talk about I like American wrestling in part because it teaches you about control. That's what folk style wrestling is. It's about how to control somebody, how to ride them out for a certain period of time. Other styles of wrestling, they're not trying to do that. They're trying to expose people. They're trying to throw them. It's the reason why Yoel Romero could blast through anybody, take him down. He just can't hold him there because it wasn't what he was trying to do. It's not what he was coached to do. In American folk style wrestling, you're coached to hold on to somebody and not let him go. And, dude, Sam Alvey's been training with a bunch of savage wrestlers his entire career. Dan Henderson is like coach, mentor, everything. I'm like, you're not going to take down Sam Alvey at a high clip. I don't believe it. And you're not going to take his back, whatever. He's been subbed twice in like a 50-something fight pro career. I don't mean to go on a rant, boys, but this was one I'm really fired up about. It's like he's been subbed twice in 50 pro fights. And once was Gerald Meerschaert. He avenged that one, by the way. And then the other one, he basically just got hurt against a way younger, way more durable, better Julian Marquez. So I'm like, I don't know. I had Sam Alvey as an underdog in that fight. And I was like, man, I can never bet Sam Alvey again. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you know what? Sam's a good fighter, but I was like, he's not going to even beat the lower end guys in the UFC. And then they were like, no, we'll give him the bottom of the barrel. And I'm like, well, then I'll take another stab, boys. I will have to do it because I just think Sam Alvey is a much better fighter. I think he should be minus 125 at minimum, 55%.
I mean, you told me that last week. You broke it down the exact same. This is a bit more emphatic, and I love that. But you said it perfectly. I mean, Wellington Turman's a guy I've been fading his whole UFC career, and it has made me money. So why stop now? I love Sam Alvey in this spot. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that in 2021. Wild. But I think this is a spot where if you want to sprinkle some round 1 KO props, I truly think Turman's chin is shot. And when you can get Sam Alvey at plus 275, I think that your breakdown sums it up perfectly. Phoenix, what do you got in this one?
I'm going to be honest, like, just similar to what Liam said after the Marquez fight, like, because I was debating. Alvey's a guy that, since I've been taping him, he's always such a big underdog, and like it always just looks like the line is too wide. And then you bet him, and then it goes bad. Like, especially with the Marquez fight, I thought that was after the Marquez fight. I was like, okay, this is bad at this point. And honestly, I didn't really go too far in depth on the tape because of that reason. I just don't really feel comfortable ever betting Sam Alvey. But maybe I should. I think Liam's breakdown there may have just convinced me, bet Sam Alvey, or at least go more into the tape. I mean, everything that he's saying makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think Wellington Turman is going to have success taking down Sam Alvey. I mean, Sam Alvey has like an 82% takedown defense, something like that. And you don't really take him down. And again, Turman's wrestling isn't what he's good at. It's his BJJ, right? He's a legit BJJ black belt, but I don't really think he is even going to get the fight there. And like you guys are saying, like, he's very chinny, and the fact that he's coming back 2 months after that KO is kind of crazy. And like Liam said, I mean, Alvey's facing like top light heavyweight contenders like Ryan Spann, arguably winning the fight.
Much bigger middleweight.
Yeah,
much bigger middleweight.
Yeah, and even so, like, Sam Alvey, usually the worry with him is that he just sits back and kind of does nothing in the fight. But he throws more volume. I mean, Wellington Turman doesn't really throw volume. Like, I mean, I think he lands like a significant striker more per fight than him. And Turman's takedown defense is not takedown defense. His striking defense is 43%, which is very bad. So, I mean, yeah, I think Alvey's the side here for sure. I mean, I didn't go too into depth with taping it because Alvey's last performance. I know Julian Marquez. He's not a bad fighter, but just the way he was looking was kind of really bad. And I just said, okay, I don't really want to go anywhere near betting a Sam Alvey, but I'm probably going to delve into it tonight and see what I can do with it, because that was a good breakdown. That was a good breakdown.
Thank you, my man.
Yes,
and what I would say, the only other thing, I just looked at the current odds. It's plus 105 for Sam Alvey. Dude, at that point, I would almost look at the inside the distance as having more value at minus 135 because Sam Alvey can get finished here. Yeah, I just don't think he's going to. I think even if Sam gets hurt, he's still going to knock him out because Wellington Turman is that chinny. Like, I think if Sam is on Queer Street, he's going to hit him with a lead hook, and Wellington Turman's going to faceplant. That's the way I see this fight going down. Like, in my worst iterations for Sam Alvey, I still see him hurting him. So, man,
yeah,
I'm fired
Sam
up.
Alvey,
let's go.
When he actually lets his hands go, he's actually a pretty decent striker. Like he's
Just
not
ask Marcin
bad.
Prachnio.
Dude, and Marcin walked onto the same punch 3 times in a row, which Wellington Turman is not above doing. I don't know.
Okay, the only thing that's scaring me off this right now is last time I had a show with a plus 125 favorite, someone went on a huge PowerPoint presentation rant. Pedro Munoz in Phoenix. Sorry to remind you about that. It just scares me now. You're so confident.
Don't remind me. Like that fight was just like. I mean, in hindsight, the bet looks absolutely terrible, but I just didn't expect Munoz to fight like that. I really just think that he was just giving him so much respect. Like he just wasn't getting in his face. He literally said, "Okay, let's go have a 15-minute kickboxing fight at range with Jose Aldo, and let's see if I win." It's just I just expect him to get in his face. I mean, he looked like he was trying, but I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was a really bad fight for Munoz.
Sorry to rub it in, my friend. I just had to make a comment on that. I mean, I think I will have a DFS video out later tonight. But Sam Alvey is my favorite DFS play of the week as an underdog because he's sitting at such a lower price range, but he's also got that huge finishing upside with a guy whose chin who's absolutely shot, in my opinion. So let's go Smiling Sam, man. I like him in this spot. I have some cash on him at plus 125. I like that too, but the real money is the plus 275 inside the distance, because if Turman's chin is shot, that is how the fight is going to end, in my opinion. All right. That's it for banking on big power puncher Sam Alvey. Speaking of power puncher, next fight up, Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Alessio Di Chirico. I mean, the book is out on Al Hassan. I mean, if he doesn't finish him in the first round, fight's over. I mean, last time out against Malkoun, someone who we thought was chinny as well, he just got controlled for 3 rounds in a very, very boring fight. Funny enough, that was the same weekend as the Jake Paul fight. I remember very much because I had this huge $10 Hail Mary that was reaching on the final leg. I had fight does not go to decision on that fight, so I hedged out and put like 3 units on Malkoun by decision, because I'm like, this is the only guy that can win decision, and I ended up making cash on it somehow. But yeah, that's for some reason I remember that really well. But yeah, I mean, Al Hassan has this insane power punching, and if he wins the fight, it will be in the first round. That's all his wins are. But can he do that against Al Chirico? I mean, he stopped the Buckley train last time out. He hasn't had the greatest success in the UFC, but this is a fight where everybody, the huge money, is on Alessio this week. Liam, what do you got in this one?
I think Alessio's the side. I think he's a better fighter. Like in the first round too. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Like I don't think he's as powerful, but I do think he's actually just like better technically as a striker, as a grappler. I kind of think Alessio Di Chirico is kind of underrated. And based on this line, you wouldn't think so. I think people are just hip to Abdul Razak Al Hassan being on his way out. He's also like 36 years old. He's been kind of just treated unfairly in his personal life, had a bunch of things go against him, and he's a human being. So I think it's all just weight on him. Can't make his old weight class. Frankly, he was a big hitter at 170 that was knocking out welterweights, and then he started missing weight and getting knocked out. I could tell you there's one thing that stood out to me like a sore thumb on tape. Every fight that I went back and watched that is on the feet for any protracted amount of time and somebody's not sleeping in like 10 seconds, he goes to throw a naked leg kick and gets countered while he's on one foot. Against Chaos Williams, he got put in a box. But in the other ones, it was like he was lucky to not get put in the box. So Bahumasi rocked him really bad because he did that. Like, he doesn't have good mechanics. He's just a really hard hitter. I don't think he has the most functional game, and he can't wrestle, can't grapple. What does he do well? He punches well early. I cap like a puncher's chance at like 15% any given time. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Alessio is probably going to cover this number. The only thing that concerns me, man, is just that he is like an iron chin kind of guy that has just recently started to show like the first signs of cracking, like that Zach Cummings fight. Granted, he just got shinned in the head, but that was like a fight he was about to win and then lost it in the last second.
I had Cummings.
You're a beast. And dude, I love Cummings, man. And I really think Cummings is another guy gets slept on, like underrated talent. But, I thought Alessio probably should have beat, who is that, Kevin Holland. Like he's had a couple of these decisions go against him that I was like, I don't know if I buy that. And, those are with more competitive, better guys in the division. And he can stand with them. He can take them down. Like he's kind of just shown a little bit more of a diverse game. I don't think his wrestling's very good, but I think it would be better than Al Hassan's. So I think he might be able to bring that to bear. Granted, I think Al Hassan is training with a legit gym now. I don't think he was before. Looked in a little bit better shape. Some marginal cause for concern, but, it's kind of like a last-ditch effort. It might be a little too late. What are you really going to do to change yourself drastically at 36 years of age? Are you going to drastically change your cardio? Maybe, but I don't really think so. So I think Alessio's the side, and I have him parlayed up. Yeah, man, I feel like he, the line is kind of getting away from it now, for sure. Like I don't know that minus 235 you're getting a tremendous amount of value. I feel like that's like where he is, maybe minus 250, something like that. But because he doesn't finish at that reliable a rate, I do think he's going to finish this fight, by the way. But like he's just not that reliable to finish, and he's kind of lost greasy decisions before. So I'm just like, that is one thing that scares me optically. Like he could lose the first round optically for sure. But what I really liked was 1.3 units. Fight doesn't go the distance, minus 130. Like Al Hassan is probably going to sell out trying to kill him in the first 5 minutes because he's fighting for his job and his career. And I think if it doesn't work, like I said, I do think Alessio's probably better standing. And so, a lot of guys that have been fighting Al Hassan are scared of him and they want to take him to the ground. I don't think Alessio is going to be like that. He's the bigger guy. I think he's probably going to be comfortable standing, especially if it's in that second and third round. And so I think he's more likely to knock him out. And I think Al Hassan is such a poor grappler that, there's always a live sub. Granted, Malkoun couldn't get him out of there and had like 500 opportunities. So that is one thing that makes me think he's not going to get subbed. Maybe he's got pretty good defense and heart there, but maybe Malkoun just sucks. And Malkoun was like 4-1, walking him around the octagon like it was no big deal. So that for me is like a giant red flag and liability. Malkoun was somebody that we all were not impressed by. But, Abdul is just not shown anything worth backing right now, I don't think. People playing him by knockout in the first round, I kind of get that. But, man, I guess I hear the narrative that Alessio shouldn't be this big a favorite just because of his skills. And I sort of get that. He's not going to grapple a ton. And I do like people to grapple if they're going to be a bigger and bigger favorite because it's less variance. But I think that striking, he should be comfortable here after 5 minutes.
Yeah, man, you did that pretty well. What about you, Phoenix? What do you got on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Alessio Di Chirico is kind of just like your definition of a very well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's decent at everything, not great at any particular skill set. But, for me, I just think that the line is accurate-ish to too wide at this point. I mean, I get it. Al Hassan hasn't looked great lately. If he doesn't get you out in the first round, he hasn't shown any capabilities to win a fight. He did move out to elevation, but he's already getting older, so I don't really know how much they're gonna be able to work with him there. But I actually think that it would be really smart for Di Chirico to use like the wrestling, because I feel like Al Hassan really hasn't had an answer to any wrestling in his recent fights, and I just don't think that. I think that if Di Chirico doesn't go to the wrestling, I just don't think he's going to justify like the price tag. I know he's the better striker and he should still probably win on the feet, but sometimes he doesn't really throw volume and makes fights much closer than they are. But I do think in this spot that he should be fine. I mean, looking at like the guys that he's fighting, I mean, he's fighting some guys that are definitely, I think, that I rate higher than Abdul, and pretty much all of his fights are pretty close and competitive. To the like around there, but I like Di Chirico here, but I just think that the line is, I think he should be probably like minus like 210, minus 215 ish range now, and I just don't think that. I think if he doesn't wrestle and he just strikes, because he's not a guy that, to me, that's going to put on like a pace on you to like really tire out Alisson to the point where like he can't, where he's exhausted. So I just don't see him justifying the price personally. But like I do think he's the better fighter. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think he's the fighter that's looked better recently. I mean, he's kind of like surging as of late, if you will. And Alhassan's kind of getting worse. So I do think he's the side for sure. I don't really see a reason to back Alhassan here. But yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. I think really if you're betting Alisson here, it has to be by KO because he hasn't really shown he can win a fight otherwise. So I think that the minute winner is going to be Alicio. I just think it's him all day. It's not a fight I'm really interested in, but I think you're going to say something, Liam, or...
I was just going to add, I think the two closest like analogs for the fight style that Alhassan brings to the table are Oluwale Bamboshe and who was the other guy? Buckley. I feel like big power strikers that want to come in and bang, like those are the guys that Alessio is actually able to counter effectively, because it's the other guys that, like Kevin Holland, for example, he had trouble countering because he's got incredible range. And so he was just pumping him out with the jab. But I feel like this is a spot where he is very live to counter. And he's a pretty decent counter striker, man. Like Zach Cummings, who I think is a good striker, was having very competitive minutes with him on the feet where he was losing most of the minutes and then was able to find that head kick. But like Alessio's just – I feel like if you give him a ton of opportunities striking on the feet, it becomes more dangerous for you, especially if you're reckless with your defense. And I just think that Abdul Razak is a little defensively irresponsible. So that's my final thought.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of either fighter, really, but I think I'm a bit higher on Alicio than the other, than Alisson, really. So I just, when your only path to victory is a first-round knockout, it's not someone I really have too much confidence betting. So let's not waste any more time on it, because the next one is a pretty interesting one. We have Makhmed Murdoch versus the guy that Kazmat Shemaev absolutely styled on, Gerald Meerschaert, GM3. One of my favorite fighters, actually. I really do like GM3. He's actually won me a decent amount of money, either betting on him or betting against him. So I do really like him. I have a pretty funny take on this one, so I'm going to let you guys go first. Liam, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, man, I'm probably going to get roasted for this one, and I'll take it on the chin, but I've got half unit on Gerald Meerschaert at plus 525. And I took that, I went really small stakes, and, I wish I could have got that plus 550. I think that was a better look, but I just saw that the line was getting absolutely insane, and I was like, based on what? Like, based on knocking out Andrew Sanchez, who's a little bit chinny in the third round, not like, taking a while to warm up to it. Based on competitive minutes with Alessio Di Chirico on the feet, where he lost the third round on every judge's scorecards. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's price. That's where I don't know. Did you lose me for a second?
I don't know if that was just me or if I logged out or something, but...
I had that too.
Did you lose me for a second?
We did lose you for a second there.
I think you're good now, though.
All right. I think I was in the middle of saying that he was having competitive minutes with Alessio.
Yeah.
So I believe he lost the third round on every judge's scorecard. So it's like, what I see from Gerald Meerschaert is that, yes, he is probably going to get blasted if this fight is on the feet the entire time with straight punches down the middle. Do I know that they're going to knock him out? I feel like when I look at like the body type of Heinisch and when I look at the body type of Chimaev, they strike me as guys that just probably carry a little bit more power naturally than Muradov. I think there's a reason why he's got to land these strikes in volume to put people away. That being said, I think he hits hard. I think he's a good striker and a better striker than GM3. But I think a lot of guys have found out the hard way in the UFC that just being a better striker than GM3 doesn't mean you're going to beat him the whole time. Like GM3 will still throw some interesting strikes. He's just not good defensively. So it's like he'll put together a combination of punches, and he's a pretty long guy, and then he'll end it with a body kick. I've seen him hurt guys with the body kick. Trevin Giles, like people that aren't expecting to be troubled by him on the feet, And then all of a sudden they're like, wait, what just happened? Why am I hurting? What? And I think that Gerald Meerschaert, he's like a perpetually slept on guy. He's an underdog in like every fight that he's in. And I just don't think he's as bad as everybody makes him out to be. Do I think Murdoch is the side? Yeah. Do I think he's like justified up to like minus 400? Sure. 80%? Okay. You can get me there. But it's just like, at what point do we say this line is absurd? It's like 89% of the time he's going to win this fight. 9 out of 10 times he's going to beat Gerald Meerschaert. And this is a guy who's been submitted before. And this is a guy who's going against Gerald Meerschaert, who's finished like every opponent he's ever beaten in his career. I'm like, stop. Like, I just don't buy that line at all. So, if you're going to tell me that Gerald Meerschaert has an 11% chance of winning, I'm going to play. But other than that, man, I can grant, it's going to be, a bitter pill if Gerald just gets knocked out in the first 30 seconds. But if this turns into a fight that lasts, 3 to 6 minutes, I think it could definitely turn into a more competitive and more interesting fight. And I don't think that Gerald Meerschaert is a lock to get knocked out in the first minute or something in this spot. I think that he could have those kind of nerves that he dealt with before, but he's been fighting, I would argue similar level of competition. So I don't know, man. I feel like decent enough spot on Gerald Meerschaert at that number. I get it if you went in on Muradov early. I certainly get it if you went in on, one of those props or something at a big plus money number for him to finish late. But, I feel like the market is pretty hip to what is supposed to happen here. And so then the unorthodox take is where you can make money. I feel like betting even a parlay of minus 800 on Muradov, it's like, show me where the value is there. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I'll get my piece in later, so I'll let you go next, Phoenix.
Yeah, me and Liam were talking about this yesterday. We see pretty much eye to eye. It's just like the line. I get it. Muradov is a very good striker. I mean, I didn't really see any footage of him on the regional scene getting taken down and takedown defense 100% in the UFC so far. So there's nothing to really show for that. Meerschaert's actually going to get the takedown. Not to mention that I don't really rate his wrestling. I think Muradov is better footwork. I just think Muradov on the feet justifies maybe an 80%. But what if like a weird scramble happens in this fight? Ends up on the ground even for like a little bit. I mean, Meerschaert, the one thing he's a very good submission artist, and Muradov is a guy that's been finished in half of his losses. So I understand that Muradov is a great prospect. I understand that GM3 is very bad defensively on the feet, but like the line is ridiculous. Like minus 600. Minus 600 is just it's too much at this point. Too. 800, like minus 800 is just it's just out of whack. Like it just doesn't make that much sense to me. I mean, like if I'm looking at a minus 800, I'm looking at either like a top 5 talent against like a guy outside of the rankings, or like a pretty decent fighter against someone that doesn't belong in the promotion. Like I don't really think you can say that GM3 doesn't belong in the promotion. I think he's a pretty good jiu-jitsu artist, and I think that his striking is actually not as terrible as everyone's saying. Offensively, I think it's okay. Yes, he's pretty bad defensively, but his striking's it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's not great, and it's not better than Muradov, but minus 800 difference, it just doesn't make sense to me. Because especially if this ends in any type of scramble and Muradov slips or something like that, and this fight ends on the floor, a guy that's been subbed 3 times against a guy who has 24 career submissions, like he could, why can't he lock up a submission? So I don't hate your spot at like plus 500. I mean, like it's a it could blow up in your face, but I think at that price, I think it's the side at that point. I mean, I think the risk reward is like 90% of the time for Muradov. I get the guys look good. He's finished all of his wins so far, except Kiriko. But like they haven't been like the top of the top guys, and now he's taking a big step down. So I just don't get the line personally. I think it's a bit absurd, to be honest. But where it is now, where's Meerschaert? Like plus 400. I mean, yeah, like that's where I have it. I have it like 75-25. You can convince me 80-20. So I don't really want to play Meerschaert at plus 400, but like plus 500, plus 600. That's a fine bet, honestly. Like that's the side at that range. Like I like Muradov, but I can't get over the line, as you can tell.
What I thought was hysterical was at the time I went to bet it on Bet Online, Gerald Meerschaert inside the distance was plus 450, and Gerald Meerschaert money line was plus 525. And I'm not kidding.
Wow.
It's because everybody was like, let me blindly bet Mearshart inside the distance. And literally the money line as Muradov just gets parlayed more and more. It's just like on an auto slope. I was like, man, it's a weird line.
Gordo Gamble fun fact of the day. Muradov is a bigger favorite than Chimaev was against Mearshart. And that's talking about the
twice
hype train.
as big.
Twice as big. And that's talking about the hype train Kazmat Chimaev, who put him out there in 22 seconds first punch. I mean, I actually really like this fight because I think it's going to be very, very entertaining one way or another. Before I do, though, what's up, Payne? How you doing, brother? I think that you got to look at it as this fight should finish. I think that people are heavily overestimating. I think people are putting a lot of stock into Mearshart being knocked out by Chimaev that early that they forget that he's got such a good ground game. Muradov not really going to be able to take it. I mean, I think that if it stays on the feet, it's Muradov all day, no question. The line could be justified by a first-round knockout. Is it going to end there? I mean, we've seen Muradov struggle on the ground. We've seen him have issues. We've seen him be subbed, and I think Mearshart is better than every guy that subbed him in the past on the ground. So I do like GM3's ground game. I've loved him in the past. I think he's very, very good on the ground, and that is his path to victory. So, in conclusion, the bet out of this fight is going to be a violence bet here. I'm loving the inside. That fight ends inside the distance line. It's in at minus 230 in certain spots, and whereas I already have enough chalky plays I like, this is one of those ones where this is the parlay piece I'm loving. I mean, if maybe you want to throw some money away on Jake Paul, this is the line you parlay it with, really. So I'm really, really liking this spot right here. I think that it's either going to end with Mearshart's chin being exposed once again, or it's going to end up with Muradov just being upset on the ground. I mean, Mearshart now places a plus 750 finish inside the distance, and I think that is his best class victory. So if you want to sprinkle a few bet credits, you got any of those. I mean, if Mearshart wins, it's probably by submission, and at plus 750, I think that's his most likely path to victory here. I don't think he knocks him out, and I don't think he wins a decision. So if Mearshart wins, I think it is by submission. But I'm going to stick with my simple fight doesn't go to decision. Great parlay piece for me. Who knows I'm going to use it yet? I have one line I'm going to talk about later that I have not parlayed yet. And I think that's what I'm going to do it with because I really want action on this one. I do really like both fighters, but it seems like a setup fight for Muradov in the long run.
I think you're spot on there, man. Weezy said on my show yesterday that whoever his manager is, Gerald Mearshart needs to call the guy from the Contender Series or whoever who's getting Michael, whoever, the guy who freaking sucks. He's like one fight further up the card, who's been subbed
Michael
3
Gilmore.
times. Yeah, exactly. He's like, he needs to get that guy's manager or the guy who got him signed for that fight. It's like just Gerald Mearshart just takes on tough challenge after tough challenge after tough challenge. But I think that, like you pointed out, man, Khamzat Chimaev, I bet Gerald Mearshart in that fight because I was like, the line is getting a little absurd. And that time, maybe I was wrong at plus 375 or whatever. But they're going further for a guy who I think is probably a little less credible. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not as sold on Muradov as the community. That's all I'll say. I think he's a good fighter, but I want to see it first. I'm not going to believe it because you say it.
Yeah, and if you have that much of a skill gap on the ground that I do believe there is, I'm not going to lay minus 800 on him. Right? So I think that is a perfect time to move right along. I think that the absolute biggest setup fight of all time, I tweeted it before, they really wanted this Petrovsky guy to win the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, Dana White said it himself, this was his favorite to win, and they're just trying to make this guy look good. And they picked the most hand-picked opponent ever. We saw this guy get walked through in seconds on the on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, he has probably one of the worst ground games we have ever seen. Any respect to him, I love his story and all this stuff, but this is a setup fight and a half, and I could not believe it when I saw it on paper because you have the wrestler, you have the guy whose only path to victory pretty much is a ground game in Petrovsky, and someone who is supposed to be a good fighter in the UFC versus someone who just has no ground game whatsoever at all. So I went ahead and I locked in Petrovsky at minus 400. I'm going to be betting his inside the distance line. He is my favorite play on DraftKings this week at any pay-up option. I mean, this guy should smash here. If Petrovsky loses his fight, it's because he gasses out and gets knocked out. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Petrovsky is an amazing wrestler, or at least for what he's seen. I agree. Submission line is there, but I don't want to bet that just in case he's Oh, sorry, I should probably fill that up. Yeah, I think that's probably the side here. But with someone as poor on the ground as Gilmore is, maybe he's so worried about his neck that he just lets himself get punched in the face enough times where he gets knocked out. I mean, I think this is Petrovsky all day by whatever way he wants. The inside the distance line is sitting around minus 220. Parlay that with the fight doesn't go to decision from the earlier one. Those are my two favorite spots of the week. I know they're two debutantes, but everything in this fight is screaming that Petrovsky is going to finish it first round. So that's all I'm going to say. I think this is a 7.5. Phoenix, what do you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I just like the line for Petrovsky. Like I'm going into the tape, especially because I did looking at Gilmore's fight against Urbina, because I taped him first. So I was like, oh, okay, this is just a hand-picked fight, which it really does look like. But I honestly think people are giving Petrovsky like way too much credit. Honestly, like I'm not betting Gilmore or anything, but like, I get it. He's a good wrestler. I mean, I watched pretty much all of his fights that I could find, and he pretty much got like every takedown he shot. Like he's a very good wrestler. But this guy does not have more than 5 minutes of cardio. So if he doesn't finish him in the first round, I don't know if he's gonna finish him, because his cardio is very bad. Like it's not good. Like he gasses, right? Like after one round, right? And on the feet he's not terrible. I think he's actually a decent striker, right? He mixes in feints. He throws a good straight left and kicks. And yeah, like everything on paper suggests that Petrovsky is going to go smash him, right? I mean, the very good wrestler, the guy that loves to get submissions, versus the guy who just got literally mauled by Gilbert Urbina on the Contender Series and has all of his losses by submission. But usually when everything points in one direction, that expected outcome doesn't
Don't
happen.
speak it into existence, man. Do not do it. Don't do it.
But
don't Phil Hayes me.
Looking at the tape on Gilmore, I mean, I don't think he's like great at all. I will say that a lot of his submission losses, though, he was actually winning the fight pretty comfortably, and then he made a very silly mistake and then got subbed. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was like 2 of his 3 sub losses. He just was winning. He hurt the guy and then he just walked into a sub. But in the I think it was the Perry fight. I don't remember the guy's first name. But on the regionals, the guy that he just calf kicked to death. What I found was that something that I will say is he stands really flat-footed, which makes it obviously much easier to take down, which isn't great. But when he was taken down in that fight, I mean, he did get up right away. Like it's not like he has. I know he got destroyed by Urbina, but from what I saw on the tape, like he doesn't have a great ground game, but it's not like if you take him down, he won't at least try to get back up. I've seen him get up on multiple occasions. So it's not a guy that has absolutely zero ground game. It's just once he's on the ground, it's kind of over. So, well, I do think that Petrovsky is going to sub him just like everybody else does. And I do think he deserves to be minus 400. I don't really want to parlay him or bet him at that price, because 1, he's a debutant. And 2, he does not have more than 5 minutes of cardio. I really despise betting on guys that don't have cardio, because you could have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have cardio or you're tired, you're a sitting duck pretty much. Those skills go to waste, and nothing suggests to me that Petrovsky has cardio. I mean, every single one of his fights that gets out of the second round, he runs out of gas and he just can't, like, he's exhausted. So, well, I think he smashes Gilmore here, and it does look like a handmade opponent. I wouldn't be surprised if Gilmore lasts around and wins the fight. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to put that out there. I got to do it.
Liam, tell me I'm not crazy.
No action. I wrote an article for Roto Grinders today, and I called this a pass fight. So I kind of agree with Phoenix here, because the ABCs say always bet on cardio. And I think that he does not have very good cardio. I saw the same thing in the tape. I saw some concerning habits on the feet, Let's say Gerald Mearshart, like I had mentioned. Gerald Mearshart, it's not like he has no offensive tools. It's that he gets hit. It's that he doesn't have very good defense. And I kind of feel the same way about Petrovsky here. He's got very good offensive tools, can really hit and hurt people, can bust up their face, throws elbows that are pretty tight, smashes people with punches, kind of got like, that wrestler power going on. Stocky guy, can hit pretty hard. I just think that at the minus 600 range, again, it's like I think that's 85%. I'm just going to double check it in my calculator here. 85.7. That's what we're saying he's going to win the fight at. And do I think it's a huge mismatch? Yeah, I really do think it's a huge mismatch. But if you don't have more, I would be more generous than Phoenix. I'll give him 7 minutes. I'll give him about 7 minutes of cardio. So I do think he can finish in the second round. He's got big, powerful takedowns. I do expect him to land them. But I've also seen that sometimes, he tries to get a little too clever by half. He's looking for arm bars. He's looking for, fall over the top for, some judo sweep, whatever. And I'm like, dude, keep it simple, stupid. Stay on the back. Finish. Get a rear naked choke. Stay in dominant positions to strike. That's what I want to see from my grapplers, even if they're good at submission threats. It's hard to submit a good guy in the UFC. Punch him a few times and he's ready to go. Put him in a position where it's better for him to give up the sub to save face than it is to just get smashed out on the ground. That's, in my opinion, how you exercise that advantage. Don't just use a control position to go for these upper level submission techniques that are going to get lower and lower percentage the higher you go in the game. So that's why I'm low on Petroski long term, unless he makes some big improvements. But I do think he's very skilled in what he is good at. I do think for 7 minutes he's a dangerous guy. But again, some of the lower level experience, it's just not really up to snuff for all these tough guys, And I'll say this, though. The only reason I give so much credit to him is that Gilmore, that's his name, right? I'm not blanking that.
Yep.
Gilmore is not good. He's got a very basic game, in my opinion. Gets out there, throws really hard leg kicks, and then tries to eventually put some punches behind him. It's just not a very clever game. It's like intro to MMA. And I just think that Petroski has a more efficient game, even though he burns all his cardio because he's trying to win the fight. And he's trying to win it efficiently and aggressively. And I do think that that's important. I think just coming out with a game plan to leg kick against a wrestler is going to get you taken down really, really fast. Got to be able to put some hands behind it. Got to be able to put threats on it, occupy their hands. If you're not occupying the hands, I can just reach down and grab your leg. And I think we're going to see several exchanges like that early, unless he just gets taken down and submitted. So, I think Petroski in the first 7.5 minutes is going to look like a minus 1,000. But I do think if it goes over, then it's going to start to look really sketchy. I think on the feet, he's minus 200. I don't think he's minus 1,000 on the feet. But I think if he is smart, if he does what he normally does, if he gets out there, shoots a high crotch, lifts him up, slams him, and goes for a sub, he should get it because they looked for a guy that he could do that to. And Gerald Meerschaert, call his management team. Please, thank you.
They picked the worst ground game out of anyone we've seen. And I'm just going to read this out because this is my thoughts right now. No doubt. Whoa, my table just moved. No doubt. All right. You know what? I am loving this spot, and I guess I'm a little crazy because it is his debut. But they literally picked the one guy who showed no ground game versus the one guy who showed mostly ground game. And they paired him up. This is a setup fight. Trotsky's more skilled than Urbina and will make it look even worse than Urbina did, in my opinion. Thank you for staying in Vegas, Michael Gilmore. I don't know if you guys know his story at all because you didn't watch Ultimate Fighter, but he was a walk-on. So, sorry, not really. He didn't make the Ultimate Fighter, but then another guy got hurt, so he filled in last minute just because he stayed in Vegas. He quit everything. So respects to him. Good for you. But you're being used by the UFC right now, in case you know. So take your paycheck, get out of here. Hopefully it's not painful for him. Oh, it sounded mean.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Let's get a really nice one. Let's get a nice head and arm choke, something. Let's get him down. Let's get a standing guillotine. Let's get something where he gets in and gets out. No harm, no foul. Jerome Rivera, Zalga Zumagulov. Let's get another one of those. Snatch that neck. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, make it so that Petroski's fine to fight in 2 months and we can fade him there. Make it so he's fine to fight in 2 weeks and we can fade him there, right? So this is a spot where it just feels too good to be true, and just wait for my bets incoming. All right, move on to the fight of the night, the one that everyone's been talking about. This is the big one. This is probably one of my favorite fights I've taped in a long time, just because it's so entertaining from both guys. We have a guy in Kevin Lee who hasn't fought in a while, coming off double ACL tears, versus someone in Daniel Rodriguez who has fought 5 times in 2020. So
Very
complete opposites in that case. I have some action on it. I'm pretty sure I told you both, but I'm gonna let you guys start. Phoenix, what do you got?
Yeah, I actually forgot to save these notes when I took them, and I taped this fight early in the week, so excuse me if I'm forgetting a couple things, but basically, I don't have a bet on this fight because I feel like the line is accurate. I feel like Kevin Lee, just looking at Kevin Lee, I mean, Kevin Lee has fought the much better competition, right? He's been fighting the top guys at lightweight, to be fair, besides Rafael dos Anjos. But Kevin Lee just he's a very good wrestler. I mean, he's really good at that, and I think his striking is decent as well. But I definitely think that he shines in the grappling in this fight, and in general, with D-Rod. The thing I was thinking going into the tape that I was going to bet Daniel Rodriguez, just based on the fact that Kevin Lee coming off 2 ACL surgeries, coming up in weight class, and Daniel Rodriguez has been looking great recently. But again, albeit against much lower competition. But some things that I don't like about Daniel Rodriguez. One is in the Mike Perry fight. I feel like he was just taken down very easily in that fight with not that much resistance. Which I didn't really like. I know his takedown defense is solid on paper, but he's defending a lot of takedowns from much poorer wrestlers. And then when he fought a guy with Mike Perry, who's an okay wrestler, I mean, he took him down pretty easily. And just looking at the guys he's beating, I mean, he beat Tim Means, he beat Gabe Green, he beat Dwight Grant, he beat Mike Perry, he beat Preston Parsons, and he lost to Dalby in a fight, which he didn't lose, in my opinion, at least. So this is a guy that could be, 6-0.
I did lose 5 units. Sorry, Phoenix. Continue.
Oh, that is brutal.
5?
Yeah, he didn't lose that fight. He did not lose that fight. But I'm sorry, man. But yeah, it's just I think this whole line is, to me, it's predicated on the fact that if Kevin Lee can get the takedowns, because I feel like if Kevin Lee can't get the takedowns, he's probably going to lose the fight, or it's going to play out really close, in my opinion. It's just, for me, I was going to bet Kevin Lee because I do think he's going to be able to get the takedowns. It's just the fact that, and at the weigh-ins too, he looked really good. He didn't look like he actually gave up too much size, honestly. He was definitely the smaller guy, but, he looked in really good shape and he looks ready to go. But for me, it really just comes down to if Kevin Lee can or cannot get the takedowns here. And I honestly think he's going to be able to get the takedowns. I think Daniel Rodriguez is a good prospect. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he mixes in. I think he's got really good boxing. I think he's got decent calf kicks. Again, he does look like he has good takedown defense, and I just think he's a really well-rounded martial artist overall. But I just think that this is a big step up for him, right? For Kevin Lee, at least on paper, this is a step down from the guys he's been fighting. I mean, Charles Oliveira, Gregor Gillespie, Dos Anjos, Barboza, Iaquinta, Ferguson. These are really good fighters. And Rodriguez just hasn't, he's not at that level, and he hasn't fought guys on that level. I mean, Daniel Rodriguez is going from fighting a guy in Preston Parsons to Kevin Lee. And in the Preston Parsons fight too, I mean, before he rocked him with that left hand, he wasn't convincingly winning that fight. I feel like it was actually going pretty close. I thought Parsons was getting off on some good strikes on Rodriguez, and I just don't feel like Rodriguez. The thing with Rodriguez is he doesn't. Besides that Perry fight, it doesn't really look like he goes out there and convincingly beats guys, even when he's outlanding them on the feet. Like Nicholas Dalby, for example. I mean, he landed 40 more strikes than Dalby in that fight, but it wasn't convincing. I mean, it wasn't like he's clearly winning the fight. It looked like he was getting hit, even though, he wasn't really getting hit. So for me, even if this fight stays standing, I mean, I don't think Rodriguez is going to win the fight flat out. I think Kevin Lee may be able to win, but I think Kevin Lee's going to be able to get the takedowns just based on how easy Mike Perry was able to get the takedowns. So, yeah, I think minus 150 is accurate, but yeah.
Oh my, this is a tough one, man. I was a little more. I will just play my cards, right? I kind of felt like Daniel Rodriguez might have a chance in this fight for a few reasons. And seeing the weigh-in got in my head a little bit because Kevin Lee looks bigger than he did against RDA, man. I will credit him there. He's made a little bit of a physical transformation. Back looks big, broad. He looks pretty strong. But he is smaller. I do think he's got a frame for 165 pounds. That's a perfect weight for him, 163. But I think he's a little bit smaller than D-Rod here. And, man, I just think it's a tricky enough matchup for Kevin. Kevin gets a ton of love and respect, and I get it, man. And, you could fade him at your own peril, right? Because a lot of people like lining up behind Gregor Gillespie when he's going to fight somebody. And, if you rallied the troops that night, it was a really tough one. So, one of the most devastating knockouts you see in a long time. But let's harken back to that for a second. Gregor Gillespie, kind of like an average size lightweight, I would say, got good musculature, but he's not like an exceptionally big guy. When we see Kevin Lee go up to 170 before, he has some success, but again, RDA is able to muscle him around a little bit, and RDA is not a big 170. RDA had to go back down to 155. So some causes for concern, I think, on the Kevin Lee side, man. He's also had 2 surgically repaired knees in like the last 18 months. I believe this fight his last fight was postponed due to a rib injury, right? And granted, Kevin Lee is a gangster. Like, he was signed to fight Sean Brady. Then he's like, D-Rod on short notice, I'll do it. Like, credit to him, man. He's very confident in himself, but it's been him before. And it just seems like a weird matchup for me to drop Kevin Lee into the welterweight division. And maybe I'm crazy, but like you mentioned, man, what has Daniel Rodriguez been? He's been extremely active. He's been getting after it. He's been, in the cage a lot. And for good or for ill, right, he's probably learning lessons even from that Dalby fight where he's like, all right, what do I have to do to get people out of there? What do I have to do to convince these judges? How can I make a more, resounding performance out here? I think that Kevin Lee, man, he's an impressive grappler, right? But he also has mistakes that he's prone to. Like, he'll put his head in the hole, dude, on a guillotine attempt. He will find his way out of a fight if it starts going the other way. Like, he just does some things that I have red flagged in my mind personally as things that really bother me. I thought that Charles Oliveira fight, that's a fight he should have won, man. That's the God's honest truth. I feel like he's a better fighter than him. And he collapsed under the pressure. Just taking him down. And, man, he gets in his own head, I feel like, when he's in these fights. And Kevin Lee's talking a lot, talking a very big game about this fight. Posting all these pictures of Daniel Rodriguez saying little and all this stuff. I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I was thinking about playing D-Rod when he was plus 135. The line has come down a little bit. It's plus 122 or something now, so I'm going to wait. I think more action is going to come back on Kevin Lee, and I'm not sure if I'm going to end up playing it. Right, this is a fight I'm going to revisit on tape, but I'll be honest, I was leaning towards the dog here. Daniel Rodriguez got taken down by Mike Perry, but Mike Perry, say what you will, he's not making 155 pounds, and he's taken down a lot of guys for better or for ill, right? Like, Mike Perry's taken guys down and gotten sub from guard, but it's like he could take down welterweights. Like, that's what Mike Perry can do. He's actually a little bit better at grappling than he is at striking. So I feel like people are overselling how easy it's going to be. Is Kevin Lee a fantastic wrestler? He's a fantastic wrestler, for sure. But wrestling people that are heavy sucks. It's exhausting. Wrestling happens for 6 or 7 minutes. It's tiring. And I think that if Kevin Lee is forced to strike with Daniel Rodriguez, it's going to be a tough night at the office. I really do. Daniel Rodriguez throws out a tremendous amount of volume. We've seen Kevin Lee get walked around the octagon with a jab by Ally Quinta. It's like, could you imagine Ally Quinta versus Daniel Rodriguez? Daniel Rodriguez is minus 300 like he was against Nicholas Dalby, if not more, right? So it's like, I don't buy all these I get Kevin Lee fights better guys at 155 where he's massive and he loses then too. He gets submitted then too when he stays on top too long. It's like, man, it's just a little concerning for me. Even the fights that you can point to as like perfect fights for Kevin Lee are fights where things still go wrong. In the Gregor Gillespie fight, his face got busted up. He was exchanging punches with Gregor Gillespie competitively. Granted, he sent him into the stratosphere, but his face was getting busted up there too by jabs from Gregor Gillespie, who, again, has T-Rex arms. Then I'm looking at, man, Kevin Lee gets jabbed up basically in every fight he's in, and Daniel Rodriguez might be one of the better jabbers he's going to fight in the UFC. He lands like 5 strikes a minute. So I'm just like, I think that the longer this fight stays standing, the more likely it is that Kevin Lee is going to get lit up. But, I'll also say this. I think Kevin's probably a little faster. That's the advantage you bring in when you're the smaller guy, typically, and that's what the advantage you're looking for is. So could Kevin Lee doink him with a head kick or something? Maybe. But I feel like if this is a boxing affair, Daniel Rodriguez is going to fuck his life up. And, at least if Daniel Rodriguez is able to get up responsibly and make Kevin work for the takedowns, I do think that this is going to turn into a greasy spot at favorite money. He was minus 170 or whatever it was when he fought RDA at 170. So just leave it at that, man. Kevin Lee gets a lot of respect.
Yeah, and he's getting respect from me this week. I think this is one of those spots where, like it was last week with the Brahimaj fight, like when someone has a path to victory as well as I think that, I'm not going to compare Brahimaj and Lee. I'm not going to do that, but yeah, we're not going to ride you about that either. But I think where someone has his path to victory the way that Lee does in his wrestling and he's able to execute it, he will look like a bigger favorite if he does execute that game plan. Like Phoenix said, it all relies if he's able to get those takedowns, and I'm banking on he does. I mean, we've seen D-Rod be taken down before, and I know he's got this great boxing, but I'm hoping Lee isn't dumb enough to just have a fight. He's got great kickboxing, good range. It's scary, but I think that Lee should be favored in the spot, and that's the end of the story. He's just a better all-around MMA fighter than D-Rod is, and I've won some money, I've lost some money. Fading. I did unfortunately bet against you and cash that Dolby ticket. Luckily enough for me, I'm not the biggest D-Rod fan out there. I think that he has a lot of holes in his game, and I'm ready for the right person to exploit him. And I think this is Kevin Lee's time. I was ready to bet Sean Brady against Kevin Lee, but D-Rod is just not Sean Brady. So completely different fighter. I'm going with Lee here. I mean, I snagged him a week and a half ago at minus 135, and I was thinking, yeah, this is he should be much higher than this. This is pre-tape, and I'm like, yeah, Kevin Lee should be minus 200, minus 220. Like, this is his time to shine. You look at the tape, and you're like, no, this is a lot closer than you expected. Luckily for me, I still think I have the edge here. But D-Rod is a good fighter, man. He's got some good potential in this fight, and he has a decent path to victory too. If you, like you said, he's able to land that jab and go off of it and piece him apart in the feet, but is he going to be able to keep that fight in the feet? So this is one of those spots where I'm like
undefeated in prison fights. That's Daniel Rodriguez, baby. Yes, sir.
Daniel Rodriguez, absolute.
That's how he introduced himself. Yeah.
No, he's I do like him, but Daniel Rodriguez isn't going to sub Kevin Lee, in my opinion, and that's how Kevin Lee's lost a few fights. So I think that Kevin Lee makes me sweat for it, but I'm liking my minus 135 ticket. Go for it, Phoenix.
Yeah, it's the last thing. One of the spots I was actually looking on that I actually didn't pull the trigger on, that I feel is against what a lot of other people are seeing value, is I actually like this fight to go over 2.5 rounds at like minus 120. I know a lot of people think that this fight could be destined to finish, but if we look at the ways the fight could finish, I mean, I don't see Kevin Lee I don't see him knocking out D-Rod. I mean, D-Rod's chin is very strong. And could Kevin Lee sub Daniel Rodriguez? I think he could sub him. I think that's the most likely way it finishes. But I feel like a lot of this fight is gonna play out is Kevin Lee, trying to get the takedown, right? Like holding him against the cage, looking to find a way to get the takedown. And I feel like that maybe like half the fight, I feel like maybe like 7.5 minutes of the fight is gonna be stalled off like that. And I also feel that Daniel Rodriguez, yes, he's got really good boxing. Yes, he's got a good amount of power. But I mean, I don't know if he's gonna finish Kevin Lee by KO, because I just don't think that Kevin Lee's stupid enough to like get in boxing range for too long with Daniel Rodriguez. And Daniel Rodriguez, what I was looking for is Daniel Rodriguez struggles with guys that move, right? Guys that with good movement. That's why I feel like he had some early struggles with Dalby in the sense that he was always moving. I mean, Daniel Rodriguez with his strikes, it's to me it seems like with Perry, right? Like Mike Perry was just walking into his jabs, right? Like Gabe Green just like walking into his strikes, which allows Daniel Rodriguez to get off on his strikes. But I feel when you put a moving target in front of him, someone that's like moving, which I'm not saying Kevin Lee is like some fantastic mover, but just for future with Daniel Rodriguez is he struggles to hit people, at least hit people hard when they're moving, right? So the main reason I think this fight's going to go over is I just think that a large portion of the fight is going to be Kevin Lee trying to get takedowns and getting him against the clinch. And then I don't think Kevin Lee's going to get knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez. I think he could. I just don't think he will. And could Kevin Lee submit Daniel Rodriguez? I mean, yes. But, I think Kevin Lee maybe just like rides it out on top, like that. So I just feel like for me, I understand that welterweight fights finish decently high, and Kevin Lee hasn't won a decision for like 11 fights or something like crazy like that. But I honestly think that this fight's going to go over, and I was very much debating it, but it just feels like maybe it does finish. But I feel like that might be a decent spot, to be honest.
No, I respect it, man. I like it. I do like it. All right, moving on. I've seen a lot of Twitter debate on this one. This is an Ultimate Fighter finale. I'm really looking forward to it. I love both these fighters. I know you guys didn't watch it, but what are your thoughts on this Ultimate Fighter season finale between Ricky Tercios and Brady Heistand? Liam, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, so I went small. I think it's let me check my my tracker. I believe it's 0.77 units that I went on Brady in this spot. Yep, that's what it was at plus 130. So trying to win a unit here. I rewatched a bunch of Tercios fights. He got knocked out by Mana Martinez on the regional scene. Not sure how relevant that is here, but just for whatever it's worth, that's one of the fights I went back to see. And that was kind of a concerning visual. And, one of the things that stands out to me about Tercios is that he's very hittable, man. And I don't think that that's changed. Like on The Ultimate Fighter, I saw him as still quite hittable. He was reacting to shots a little bit better. He was also fighting arguably a lower level of competition than he had outside the house in certain fights. So I don't know, man. I think that Tercios probably more skilled on the feet. But I do think he's going to get taken down in this spot, and I think he's probably going to get taken down a lot. The cardio was the only thing that scared me in this fight. And when I heard that they could go to a fourth round if they were tied after 3, I was like, shit. Because if I had known that before, I would have been a little, like just ever so slightly less confident in making my play. But I still think it's a good enough spot for him, man. I think that he looked really good on the show. Like I said, I didn't go back and watch the storylines. I don't know who everybody is. I don't care about their families and everything. I hope they're all doing great. God bless them. But I just mean like I literally only saw their fights. And I thought that just that Reddinghouse fight was grit. It was determination. It was hard. It was a harder fight. I feel like the Tercios even is going to be for him. And he kind of proved a point there. Was it a close fight? Yes. Was it a down to the wire fight? Yes. But that's the kind of fight that really impresses me when I see somebody winning that fight. And the criticism of him, if you were to make one, was that he hadn't really beaten anybody, and that he wasn't really fighting anybody of talent and of merit when you go back and look at his resume. But then when you see it's because he's been being groomed for these opportunities, right? And especially as a wrestler and a grappler, I think sometimes one of the things people don't understand is if you get put out there to the wolves and let's say you get some kickbox or whatever, you get knocked out, it just sends you down it could be a bad road, man. It could be number one, your confidence could be affected, but number two, it could also just be bad for your long-term health. Let's get him in there with guys that can't hurt him so he can get out there, get some experience, get some minutes, get moving around and build up confidence. And that's something boxing understands. It's something MMA doesn't always understand. And so I think it would make sense to build somebody up, with easy matchups and make sure that they're groomed and ready for when they get a big step up in competition and an opportunity. And, I think that's kind of what we're seeing from Brady here. So I think he's I think he should probably be a favorite in this spot. I would have went a little bigger if I had more reliable data to go on, but I feel like it's a little unknowable. And I also miss a little bit of the line here. People had already dug into that when it was plus 145. So I wanted to go a little bit smaller on the plus 130, but I do think it's a decent enough spot, man. I think Tercio is a fan favorite. I like his style. He's fun. But I also think that, he's got to fight a really perfect fight in order to win this, in my opinion. He's got to really be disciplined. He's got to not make any mistakes. And I think Brady, if he fights reasonably smart, he got fucked up by Josh Reddinghouse with clean shots for the entire second round and didn't think about quitting and kept coming forward and then found his takedowns and gutted the win. Like, that's a guy who I'm not going to put my money in front of right now, especially with somebody like Tercio, who we've seen get finished before. We've seen him get outworked before. The Boston Salmon fight, it's like, Jesus Christ, man, that was really a horrifying visual, man. Boston Salmon, not the most successful career in the UFC. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sold on Tercios, man. I like the other guy. I like Brady.
Phoenix, what about you?
Yeah, I actually slightly disagree. I just feel that I agree with a lot of the points that you're making, and I actually see the same things as you. I just give a little bit more credence to Tercios, because I feel like I understand that with the Reddinghouse fight, like, that was a really good win for Brady. I mean, because if you look at his regional wins, I mean, I don't think he has beaten anyone with a win. And if he did, it was the guy that was 1-12. But like you were saying with your whole thing, makes a lot of sense. And then he beats a 16-5 Reddinghouse, like the most experienced guy in the house. Very good win there. But
and Murdoch too, right?
Yeah, dominated
Yeah.
Murdoch. I do think, though, it is important to know that Murdoch actually, he something happened to him in the beginning.
Ruptured it. Yeah, I did hear that too.
Yeah. But I feel like with Ricky, I feel like you can make the same argument with the Archuleta fight. I mean, he had to dig deep in that fight too. I mean, that was a really hard matchup for him as well. And to me, what really sells it is that I don't have a bet on Ricky. I do think the line is probably a little bit too wide, and that Brady's the side to bet. But I do believe that Ricky should be like the minus like 135, minus 145 favorite, just in the sense that I do think that Brady is going to have success taking him down. Especially in the first round. But Ricky's a guy that, for one, does not just accept being on his back. I mean, that guy will punch you, elbow you, throw up arm bars, triangles. He'll stay active to try to do something, and he scrambles. Right, both guys are really good scramblers. Both guys, and I do think that Brady, when he gets him down, I don't necessarily think that he's just going to be able to hold down like a guy as antsy as Ricky on the ground for 15 minutes, especially considering that Brady genuinely has cardio problems. So I do feel that I do think this fight's going to be fought at a very high pace. I do think this fight's going to have a lot of scrambling exchanges. I just think that the longer this fight goes on, I think Ricky's going to be at the cardio advantage. Not to mention, I do think he is the better striker. I mean, like you said, after the first round with Reddinghouse, like, Brady just got pieced up that whole second round. Maybe that's because he was too tired to even shoot a takedown before he had to dig deep and get it. But I feel like on the feet, I feel like Ricky's striking is decent. I feel like I don't think it's great, but I think it's definitely better than Brady, who really just kind of just throws like looping hooks just to try to get in, close the distance and getting close. And I just feel that if Ricky can stuff a few takedowns, I feel that if Ricky can, not stay on his back, not just let Brady control him on the ground for prolonged periods of time, that the longer this fight goes on, I just feel like that definitely favors Ricky. I mean, Ricky's faced the better guys. Again, I understand what you're saying with like not feeding him to the wolves, which makes a lot of sense. But Ricky has been in there with some better guys, in my opinion, and I just feel that Ricky's in great shape cardio wise. I think that Ricky isn't a fish out of water on his back. Say that again.
I think he's older as well.
Yeah, 28 to 22.
Okay, that's not the most meaningful difference, but
yeah,
I still like the younger guy.
And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. And I just feel that, just looking at Ricky's fights, again with the Archuleta fight, I feel like he dug deep and he actually controlled Archuleta in the third round on the ground. I mean, maybe Archuleta was tired, and Ricky's got some some wrestling, and he's got a decent ground game. I mean, I just don't feel that. I understand Brady, looks like a pretty good wrestler, and especially with that win over Murdoch. But I just feel like Ricky, especially with the potential of it going into a 4th round too, like you said, I just feel like the longer this fight goes on, I feel like Ricky could be live for a 10-8 round in round 3 potentially, because just at the fact that he fights at such a high pace and he scrambles. Like, that's mainly what it comes down to for me, is the fact that I don't think he's going to accept bottom position and just, get kind of done for. I just feel that, he's going to bring the fight to Brady, and they're going to have clinch exchanges where they're fighting for position, and the fact that they're going to constantly be reversing positions, going for dominant position. And Brady's cardio doesn't look that great to me. I mean, it kind of looked like he took the round off against Reddinghouse. But again, he dug deep. He won that fight. All credence to him. That was a very good win, for sure. But I just feel like that win, I feel like that's the win that a lot of people are, the reason that they're betting Brady here is mainly because of that win, beating a guy with that's not a can, showing that, yes, he gets tired, but he still has the ability to go and win a fight while being tired. But, with Ricky, I just feel that, yeah, I've pretty much said everything that I can. I feel like he has the striking advantage, and I feel like he's going to get off on the strikes. And I just feel that, as he's not going to get taken down and controlled for the entirety of the round. I do think he'll be taken down. I do think there will be times where he's being controlled, but I trust him to, try to work back to his feet, try to try to get a submission, try to get himself in a dominant position himself, maybe go for a sweep or something like that. So I'm not betting Ricky. Again, it's a low level Ultimate Fighter fight. Both guys have holes in their game. Both guys, still have a lot to learn. Both guys, I think, have some decent potential. But for me, I do think Ricky should be the favorite, just because, again, I just don't like to bet on guys with notable cardio issues. And that's really what it comes down to for me. And yeah.
You're muted, buddy.
Am I still?
Nope, now you're back.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, man. So I think the value play here is Brady, no doubt. I mean, I don't think the line should be this wide. And on DraftKings especially, I think that he's a great play because he will probably get you takedowns, will get you control time, and I think it'll be a really competitive fight. But if you look at every single difference this fight has in terms of ground game, standing up, everything like that, the biggest difference for me between the two is cardio and output. And I think that when you have someone in Tercios who's just going to push the pace, just have be this huge ball of energy that he always is, I think that will play more an impact on the fight than Brady's wrestling will, because I think that, like you said, Ricky's going to be able to scramble. He's going to be able to do a bunch of stuff. And I think that if this fight was line 50-50, you favor Ricky all day. I think Ricky wins this fight, but I think the main reason that people are going against him is just because of that Reddinghouse fight, like you said. But I don't think that Ricky's going to let him take a round off the same way that Brady does, or that Josh did. And I think it's one of those spots where if he's given the same fight that Reddinghouse was given, that Tercios takes advantage and does a lot better in that fight. So there's no bet for me at all. I think that as a value play and as a drafting perspective, it's Brady all day. But I'm picking Tercios to win here, and that is why. Go ahead, Phoenix.
Yeah. Just last thing with just that you brought that up. If we get into a parallel situation, if you get into a similar situation in that second round with Ricky, I just feel that, let's say Ricky doesn't, it's a similar round, right? He pieces him up on the feet, doesn't, and then the fight goes to the third round. Ricky is not getting tired. That's the thing. He's going to keep going at that same pace. And when you're tired, the shots become easier to stuff. So a fully fresh Brady, I expect him to take down Ricky. But once he starts to become fatigued, once he starts to become tired, I just feel that the shots are going to be more telegraphed. I feel like the shots are going to be easier to stuff. I feel like maybe Ricky can even get him down, maybe something like that. So I just feel that I get it that Brady has the dog. I feel like the line is too wide, but that's just I just feel like the reason that Brady is being bet and people are confident in him is because of that Reddinghouse fight. Because I don't really see it otherwise, because it's a guy who's a guy who fatigues versus a guy who doesn't, and a guy who gets better as the fight goes on. It's like a Billy Quarantillo type fighter. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I respect your bet. I mean, I think it. Would you get it at plus 135?
Plus 130.
Plus 130. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's probably, yeah. I feel like, to me, that's about right. But if you give more credence to Brady, in the sense that you think that you're a bit better off than I'm rating him. I feel like that's a solid bet, and I could definitely hit, right, especially in these low level fights. I'd rather be on the dog than the minus like 160 favorite. So yeah, good luck.
I think also. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, after you.
Yeah, I think the fact that there's a fourth round too also does favor Ricky, just in case it does happen. Like the 10-8 round isn't out of the realm of possibilities here, and I do give the card advantage to Ricky. Go ahead before I move on here.
All I was going to say real quick was just that, if you look at the records of guys that Ricky has finished, so like actually like knocked out or submitted, he's got 4 of them: 4-5, 0-0, 4-1-1, 4-3. So it's like, okay, like he's finished a couple guys that are not very good pros. He has like split decision wins over like Steve Garcia and Bellator and stuff. But otherwise, I'm like, is he gonna hurt him the same way that Josh did? I actually don't know that he's gonna hurt him that bad. Like I think Josh hits harder. I think he's a little bit better and crisper with his striking. Ricky is like good at keeping long and like touching people with a lot of volume, but I don't think he's like this tremendous power threat. And so I think he actually would be a little more comfortable taking a round off, like striking with him. I think it would be more comfortable. Now, granted, Ricky would put on a little bit more of a pace, and he probably wouldn't slow down as much. But that's because what was the really smart move from Josh? He was committing to counters to the takedown. Like the reason we didn't see takedown attempts is because he was selling out to take his head off with an uppercut and having some success. So that was without him shooting the takedowns. He was hitting the uppercuts. He's like, if I shoot a takedown, I'm probably going to get flatlined. So I'm going to run away from this guy and let myself get my lungs back a little bit. And that was what I thought was impressive. It's like, if you get tired, man, most people go from tired to dead tired to fucked. He went from tired to recompose, and now I'm back. That's a high-level athlete in my mind. And what I would also give credit to, and I think the only kind of disagreement we have, the reason for the discrepancy, is just what you said about Tercios. He's not going to stop throwing even if he's on his back. Even if he's on the ground, he's going to keep elbowing, he's going to keep punching, he's going to keep moving. I agree, but I think that that's the reason why he's going to stay on the ground. I think he is a little too conciliatory sometimes from the bottom position. Yes, he tries to move and create jiu-jitsu scrambles, but if you do that with a good wrestler, they can still use it to pass. It doesn't take the best jiu-jitsu skills to pass somebody who's being aggressive off their back. And what I think is that he could just start landing his volume, his shots from the top position. And we know that referees and judges care more about that. What's landed from the top player than the bottom player, because the gravity is on your side, right? We've seen like 2 knockouts in UFC history from somebody flat on their back that weren't up kicks. So it's like, unless Tercios up kicks him from his back, I feel like he's going to be losing those exchanges if he's on his back, right? That being said, can I see this getting greasy in that round 3 and a 10-8? Yeah, that's where I start to see exactly what you're talking about. But I also am thinking the Ultimate Fighter is like the weirdest scenario in the world, where you don't know if you're going to have to fight 2 or 3 rounds. It's fucking nerve-wracking. Everything is on the line in every fight. Now they're in the UFC. It's like this is like a good opportunity, a good showcase fight, if anything. They basically did their job already. They separated themselves from the rest of the not very good pack. But what I think stands out to me is just like, if we're looking at prospects, the one who is going to be reliably shooting takedowns coming forward, who, if we can expect any improvements, it's from the younger guy who's 22 years of age. And so, yeah, maybe he panicked in the Ultimate Fighter, got a little tired, and we saw him come back. And so that's why I'm like, this Brady guy, if it's not this weekend, he will make a statement, I think, one day. I think he's a good fighter.
Yeah, man, I saw a tweet earlier that the parlay of the card is just a max bet, both fights not ending in a draw because of that 4th round sudden death. And I thought that was hilarious just because you know what, they're not going to end in a draw, right? There's a 4th round in case that does happen. So you just parlay that together, make like 2 cents on a $100 bet, and you move on with your day. But yeah, moving on to the next Ultimate Fighter fight, the finale, the short notice. I was really looking forward to see Battle versus Gore, man. I was really looking forward to that. I'm not going to lie, completely spoiled this fight. I didn't watch the episode until Phoenix texted me like, oh, what are your thoughts on this fight? And just absolutely ruined it for me. So shame on you. But no. It's a very interesting matchup. Brian Battle versus Gilbert Ubina. I'm on Brian Battle here, man. I think that he shouldn't be nowhere near the same amount of his favorite as Turcios is to Brady. I think that should be a much bigger favorite because I think I give him the advantage almost everywhere this fight goes. I'm not that huge on Urbina. He was knocked down 4 times to Gore, even though I do give Gore a huge power advantage there. But I don't think Urbina's that great. I don't see him having that much of a future in the UFC. And Brian Battle has beaten some decent names too. I mean, you watch his tape; he's a decent fighter in himself. So I'm going to give him the edge here. I haven't locked in a bet yet. I'm looking at it. Maybe I will. I just think he has the advantage in a lot of places here. What about you, Liam? I'll kick it to you first.
Absolutely. I'll try and be short and sweet on this one, man. Urbina didn't impress me very much. I went back and watched some of his regional tape. He is a pretty one-note fighter, but he's good at what he does, relatively. Against low-level opposition, he's going to take their back. He's going to finish him, man. And if he's not going to finish him, he's going to ride him out round after round. He's pretty active at looking for the back. He's pretty decent at getting it and holding on to it. But I do think that that's against a low level of fighter, man. We haven't really seen him do that against credible, good fighters. And when he has fought credible, good fighters, what I have seen is that his striking is horrible. Like, he looks good in his striking matches against low-level regional guys, and I went back and watched a couple of them because he's a long guy. He can kick hard. Like, he can hit pretty hard. So he kind of gets people dissuaded, and he's a long-rangey guy in some of his fights. But, man, I just wasn't altogether that impressed with Urbina's footage. I thought the Tresean Gore fight, I was impressed by Tresean, but I was just like, what a horrible look. Just walking onto jab after jab, no adjustments, not trying to make Tresean come to him. Just seemed like he had no answers. And I think Brian Battle, if I had a concern about it, it's the first round. I think he might lose the first round here. But I do think he's going to take over this fight as it goes on. I think his sprawl and brawl game is pretty good. The time he got submitted, I went back and watched it. It was kind of like a mental lapse / actually striking errors that really cost him. He was kind of hurt. So he was like, let me get a quick takedown. He took the guy down and then got armbarred. And I don't think that he's a world beater, but I do think he is the best prospect left standing. And I think that he's going to be able to dominate this fight if it's in the clinch. He's got really devastating knees in the clinch positions. I like what I've seen from him there. I think that he's probably going to win this if it's at kickboxing range as well. So, man, I'm on Brian Battle here. I haven't played him straight yet, but I'm considering it. I'm trying to wait for that line to creep back down under -170. And I do have him. So the parlay that I had talked about, it was a very small parlay, 3-leg on Brian Battle, on Dustin Jacoby, and on Alessio. And it is Brian Battle and Jacoby that is like my 0.7 unit parlay. So that's the one that I feel a little bit more confident about. Jacoby, Battle, feel like big guys in fights against guys that people think can grapple them that won't be able to. That's how I feel about it. That's how I decided to play it.
All right, man. Yeah, I dig it. I completely see that. I'm on Battle here as well. What about you, Phoenix?
Yeah, I remember I texted you about this one earlier when I spoiled the result for you. And
No.
I have no idea. Like, I honestly couldn't even. For some reason, like, I just couldn't put my foot around this fight even to where to cap it. I just feel like with these Ultimate Fighter fights, it's just so hard to see like who's good at what, because they're just, both of them are fighting guys that are like 2-2 at best, right? So it's just, I don't know if like, oh, you throw this combination good, oh, your ground game's good against this guy, okay. Like, I don't know what to reference that to, because they haven't fought, someone who's great. Like someone like Battle, he got control. Like, I think Urbina's ground game isn't great. I think his back control is pretty decent. I feel like he uses ground and pound to set up submissions. I feel like he gets hooks in well, but it's like with Battle, like the first round completely controlled by a guy like Andre Petrosky. Now, I do think Andre Petrosky is definitely a better wrestler, better ground fighter than Gilbert Urbina, but it's just like, by how much? I don't really know, because nobody's beating someone else who's very credible, right? So for me, I really couldn't get like any read on this fight at all. I did favor Battle, Just because I do think I don't think he's very good, to be honest. I don't think he really has a lot of upside in the UFC. But I just feel like with his tough wins, like he beat a literal punching bag in the Lachinov fight, or I think it was his name, something like that. And then I feel like he just took advantage of a guy with no cardio in the second round who just walked into a guillotine. And again on the regional scene, he's not really beating anybody that great that I saw. So I mean, I don't really know at all. What I will say is that Urbina has a tendency to like walk into hook shots and Battle throws some decent hook shots. That's something that kind of popped out to me. And Urbina's just hittable in general. The one credence I will give to Battle is he knows how to fight long. Like he's one of those tall guys that's like, okay, I'm tall. Let's use it. Let's use my jab. Let's use my range, because that's what tall guys should be doing, right? And I'll give him that. And Urbina's very hittable. I mean, I think he's going to walk into a lot of jabs. And if it stays standing, I think Battle's going to comfortably win the fight. It's just, can Urbina get Battle down? Battle's shown I actually thought he showcased pretty solid takedown defense. And if he does get taken down, he gets up pretty quickly. But like, what if we're underrating Urbina's wrestling, and we're just underrating it because he hasn't really done it against someone of that, of quality, and then he just takes him down and has success holding him down. So I don't really have a good read on this fight at all. Like, I don't even know where to cap it, honestly. So
Urbina is so much smaller too, though, man. Like I'm pretty sure he's like a career 170 and 175. Yeah. So it's like
that is true, yeah.
Battle is big. Like Battle is a big guy, and I feel one of the things I noticed about him, man, like you were talking about fighting long, dude, he frames off the face like out in front of him like this to push people into the clinch, and they can't like do anything. Like he's got long arms, he could do it from like range. Sometimes he gets a little reckless with it, but like he's just got like a good frame for the division. I think he's probably going to end up smacking him around. Urbina never met a punch he didn't like. You noticed it about the hooks. I felt it about the jabs. He just never met a punch he didn't want to walk onto. So I don't know, man. I feel like if he's not having, 10 plus minutes of control time, it's going to be a tough out.
Agreed.
Hey, man, you may have no idea what to do on this one, but I'm pretty sure you got a good read in the next one. Main event time, Giga Chikadze versus Edson Barbosa. Last time we saw Barbosa, we saw that incredible round 3 knockout, scary knockout of Shane Burgos. And last time we saw Giga, we saw the Giga kick destroy Cub Swanson round 1. You got a huge lapse in level of competition. You have a massive disadvantage there, but it looks like it's going to be a standing kickboxing bout. I don't know, man. Phoenix, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't have a bet. I was really close. I think we're all on the same side, but I just don't understand how you can justify betting Giga Chikadze at not decent plus money in this fight. I just don't see how you can do it, because if you look at who Giga's beating, it's not even just that he's beating a much lower level of competition. It's just like he's beating guys that are like that Edson would do the exact same thing to, if not worse. Like okay, the Cub Swanson fight, I mean, we didn't really get to see the fight play out. He hit him with a good like liver shot, Giga kick or whatever you want to call it. I don't really like, that's just, I don't know, man. I don't really buy into that. But yeah, I think it was you who commented with the Jamal Emmers ate the same one. Yeah, it was you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when he kicked Jamal Emmers 10 times in the left side and Jamal Emmers kept walking forward, no one was like, oh, that was the Giga kick right there.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I think he hit him with a good shot. Like fair enough, good win. I wish we would have seen the fight play out. But then I look at his next wins. I mean, like Jamie Simmons, like we already established this a couple weeks ago that Jamie Simmons is not UFC caliber, and even in that fight,
we were.
I mean, he wasn't even really like throwing in that fight, to be honest. Like it wasn't like he hit him with a good head kick, but like before that, kind of nothing was happening. So I wasn't like overly impressed. He beats Omar Morales, which I feel like that's just a fight where Omar was just like kind of walking into his strikes. I mean, I feel like it was kind of like just kind of easy for him to win. Just rewatching the fight, like Omar's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but Omar, the guys that he's beating aren't kickboxers, right? Like Omar's like a boxer. He wants to get in close and like box your face in, and then Giga was just got his timing down, countered him, and just kind of beat him up like that. I mean, Erwin Rivera, I mean, like that's not an impressive win. I mean, much smaller guy, short notice, all that. And then I look at his two other wins, like Jamal Emmers. I don't think he won the fight, and I at all. And I feel like Jamal Emmers was having a lot of success striking with him, especially in that third round. Like this wasn't overly long ago. I mean, this was when, like 2020. This was just over a year ago that he was. Remember, this is a 5-round fight. So now 3 rounds in the third round, you're getting just completely out volume because you're really tired. By Jamal Emmers, I feel like, I'm not saying like Edson's a guy that doesn't get tired himself, but I just can't see how you bet Giga here. Like I understand when I saw a lot on Twitter that, like, when you're talking about level of competition, I mean, if this is going to be a kickboxing fight, like Giga has fought like at the highest level in kickboxing, which makes a lot of sense. But I do think that, Edson's the better boxer. If he wants to get in close and punch his face like that, I feel like he's got great like up top body combos, boxing combos. I feel maybe he wants to mix in wrestling, although I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't have a bet just because I feel like, because it is a kickboxing fight, betting against Chikadze in a kickboxing fight is a little bit worrying, and maybe he beats him, but I just feel as the fight goes on, I mean, Giga has never looked good in a 3-round fight, in my opinion. I don't know how he's going to look in a 5-round fight, especially against a guy like Edson, who is a kickboxer. I feel like this is the first kickboxer, a guy that's going to fight him at kickboxing range in the UFC so far that he's had to face with. That kicks hard, that also can box, that also has the threat of maybe mixing in a takedown. And I just feel that Edson, he's been competitive with pretty much everybody that he's fought. I feel like, especially at featherweight, I mean, Ige, he lost that split decision. Felder, he lost a split decision. Obviously, he got demolished by Gaethje. He beat Hooker, and then he lost to Lee. Khabib, like, he's just fighting like such good guys, and he's just, he's. It's a tough fight to break down because Giga is such a good kickboxer. It's not like he's fighting. It's not like Giga's like he has so much experience kickboxing that maybe he just out kickboxes Edson. But Giga's he hasn't really faced like adversity, in the sense that he hasn't been hit hard. He hasn't been kicked by such an elite level fighter. I mean, the biggest thing we've seen towards that so far, in my opinion, has been Jamal Emmers. And if that fight goes longer, I mean, I think Jamal Emmers finishes him in the 4th round, right? So I just don't see how you can bet Giga at like plus like 100 when he really hasn't. He doesn't have, especially when people are like fading him against, like, I know everyone's been wanting to fade Giga for so long. People were fading him against Cub. People like Omar against him, and he was like underdogs in a lot of these spots, like against Emmers, against Omar. So I don't know. I'm just rambling now, but it's hard for me to break down this fight too, because I really do want to bet Edson, but I just got that weird feeling that maybe Giga hits him really hard with a kick to like the body or the face, or. But I just feel like just from like standard, you gotta favor Edson at evens here, right? Like, this is just a more proven guy who's faced a better competition, who's actually like a kickboxer, right? Like, not a kickboxer, but someone that will fight you at kickboxing range and is good at it. I mean, Edson's got some of the best kicks in the UFC, man. Like, this guy, he can do it all too. So to me, it's just big step up for Giga, who's just faced it's just I can't back Giga, and I can't back Giga unless it's like plus like 150 or more in this fight. I can't do it.
I hear you, brother, for sure. And yeah, man, I kind of have a lot of the same thoughts. This is a fight I've had my eye on all week, man, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't very close to putting down 1.15 units when it was minus 115 on Edson like 2 hours ago. And I was thinking it over. I was looking back at the stats. I go back to check. He's minus 122 again. So I'm like, all right, well, my basic decision was that I'm not going to play Edson over minus 120, even though I favor him here, because it's, again, what I was talking about. When I'm in a late shock, I kind of want to know that somebody has wrestling they can fall back on. I want to know that they can take control positions, whether it's against the fence or on the ground, where it's just a little tough to imagine a really controlled win for Edson here. I feel like it's going to be contested at kickboxing range, where it's 4-ounce gloves, man. It's swinging with fists and hammers, and knees and kicks. And if you could give one air of credibility, maybe to the Giga side, it would be that he's taken less abuse in professional fights. But that's arguable. He was a professional kickboxer. I'm sure he was taking abuse in those fights, in the training for MMA. It's like nobody's getting in and out of this unscathed, but that might be where he's got an advantage, right? He might be a little bit fresher than Edson, but Edson's just looks stellar. His last couple fights. I'm from the same area as Shane Burgos, man, and I really like him as a fighter, like what he stands for, like what he's doing. But I also, I get concerned for Shane as like a fan of him, and so he's a father, he's got kids. It's like I was saying before, I don't know their families, whatever. I'm talking about the Ultimate Fighter. This is close to home, right? This is somebody I do. It's like I don't know him personally. I know his family. I know of a lot of people that know him close. So it's like, man, tough to see him take that kind of damage. Edson hits like a truck. And I told everybody within earshot, do not bet on Shane, even though I like Shane. And even though everybody was talking about he had upside in that matchup, Shane's too willing to be hit, man. If you're willing to be hit against Edson, you're going to get hurt really, really bad. And that's what we found out there. I don't think Giga's as willing to be hit, but I think he's able to be hit after the 7.5 minute mark with a lot more ease than before. Giga, I think, is at his best early on in a fight when he's switching stances fast, when he's firing one kick right to another. Like, he can do some pretty funky stuff. He is pretty talented. But I do think it's a little limited. I do think some guys have been able to game plan for it and, negate a lot of his advantages. Jamal Emmers should have been a favorite in that fight. Retrospectively, it's like, did he lose? Maybe, but on his own fight IQ, it's like it was a very close fight, and Jamal Emmers, was keeping it extremely competitive, winning minutes standing in round 3. So it's like, we're going to say Edson Barboza isn't going to be winning minutes standing. I think the only way you could say that is if Edson gets knocked out, right? So it's like, it should be a competitive fight, man. I think that because of the variability, I told readers that I was looking at the under 4.5 rounds at -130. If Edson's the same price as the under 4.5, I do think Giga is pretty likely to slow down after 2.5 rounds. I do think that Edson carries his power into that 3rd and 4th round. We saw that in the Burgos fight. And I think one of the other things is the more straightforward attritional game plan, I think, can be followed by Edson. Giga's trying to land something big to change the fight, like that big kick to the body. He's trying to land a big head kick upstairs. He's trying to land one of those big lashing combinations where he comes with 2 of them over the top. I think that there's just a lot more process to what Edson's doing. He kind of goes through this, he's a combination striker, man. He's not going to just throw one shot and, hope it does all the damage. He really does a pretty decent job of answering with combinations. And I think he's probably going to find Giga on some counters here, especially as the fight goes on. I think if he doesn't get lasered early, Edson's probably going to take over and win it late. I predicted Edson by 4th round TKO. And that's how I feel about the fight, man. I think it is competitive. I think it is close, but I think it ceases to be as competitive after 10 minutes unless Giga is able to do fight-changing damage in those first 10 minutes. So we'll have to wait and see. But, I think Edson could change the tone of this fight with some leg kicks. I think he's a better body puncher than Giga is. I think that he is a better pure puncher than Giga is. Giga has a little bit of fat on his punches for a kickboxer, man. I'll be honest. He's a kicker. He likes his kicks. He's very functional with his kicking game, but I think his boxing could be where he gets caught in this matchup. And, I'm going to favor Edson, but, I can't really get much beyond that Edson Barboza -150 because it's going to be striking. Maybe if he mixes in takedowns. I think he shot like 8 takedowns in his UFC career, man. So everybody talking about he can shoot takedowns. He probably is better on the ground. It's just like if somebody doesn't do it, it doesn't matter. So it's like I could be good at something, and just if I'm not going to bring it to bear in the cage, it's kind of hard to bank on it. So, man, I like Edson. I like the under 4.5 rounds. Haven't played one thing on this fight yet, so you can check on Twitter. I will update if I do end up taking a play. Haven't taken the plunge yet. I kind of liked it a little better at -125. It's creeping up a little bit, -130 now that under 4.5. Edson's line is creeping up a little bit, so I might just end up passing on this fight. But yeah, I'll take Edson, man. I'm going to go with the community here. I just think I think Giga is like a new fan's dream. They've only seen these recent fights. They're like, man, this guy's really good. He can kickbox. Edson's a little older. But he's not that much older. Like, they're similar in age. It's like, I just feel like some of the things I would want to check off on a box if I'm looking for somebody to win, inside the distance on Edson Barbosa, I want pressure. It's like Edson, if he could be accused of two things, it's not being able to stand up to pressure and being a little fragile. So the being a little fragile is the only cause for concern in this fight. I don't think Giga's a very effective pressure fighter. So that's why for me, it seems like an Edson Barbosa spot. But, you just got to be realistic. When it's 25 minutes of kickboxing, somebody can go down at any time, even if they're better.
No, that was a very, very, very good breakdown from both you guys. I mean, I'm not going to be betting on someone who was plus 160 on Morales a year ago. And that's the fact. I think Barbosa has the edge in competition, edge in a lot of things, and I'm not going to bet against him. I don't think I'm going to bet this fight at all, if I'm being completely honest. So at 2 hours, 10 minutes, I'm going to sit back and enjoy that fight tomorrow night. I appreciate you both for coming on the show. It was a great, great show. I thank you guys very, very much for that. Before we do leave, though, Liam, you're going to the Paul versus Woodley fight this weekend. I think everyone who watched this would know I went a huge rant on the Askren Paul fight last time. I believe it's just an utter way to make money, and I'm not a big fan of it. Quickly though, what are your thoughts on that one?
Man, I would tell you this. I'm writing an article about it, so I'm going to have a more developed opinion about it later. I'm still going to go back in and do a little more tape study on Tyron Woodley. Some interesting notes. Tyron's going to be smaller. Like that can't be discounted. Tyron is going to be significantly older, almost 15 years. And I think that, those are big differences. Those are substantial fight-altering differences. The reach is a substantial fight-altering difference. And then you look back, and this is going to be, the fifth time that Jake Paul makes a walk to a boxing ring. He did one amateur fight, won 3 professional bouts, no competition really. But again, it's like Ben Askren, right? People were talking about, but he's a fighter, but he was in MMA, but he was in boxing gyms for X amount of time. And it's like, okay, but what was he trying to do? Was he trying to box? No, Ben Askren was trying to close distance. Well, no, I'm saying, like, when he was an MMA fighter, was Ben Askren trying to go out there and implement a boxing game plan? No. So the difference in this fight is that Tyron Woodley spent a lot more time standing, spent a lot more time at distance with people in the UFC, a premier fighting organization, right? And he's got a pretty good record over that time in terms of he hasn't been knocked down in the UFC, Tyron Woodley, to the best of my recollection. I think he got knocked down in Strikeforce. But yeah, I don't believe he ever was knocked down in the UFC. Even in that Vicente Luque fight, he gets stuffed down on a front headlock, but he did not get knocked down by those punches. He was holding himself up with one hand on the cage at one point, but he did not go down from those punches. I thought it was a little interesting to find that out. But what I would also say is this, man. I think Tyron Woodley, for as promising as the Vicente Luque fight could be, on the one hand, you're like, wow, Vicente Luque is like still a top welterweight, and Tyron Woodley had this guy rocked. The problem is, man, he showed a little bit of his inexperience in the boxing realm right there, right? He hurts him, and his hands are out to the side. He's winging big shots. He's trying to take his head off. And so it just takes a little check, and that's it. Then he's gone because his whole equilibrium was off. He wasn't balanced when he was punching. He throws himself into his punches. It's like part of the reason Tyron Woodley hits like a truck is because he throws 170 pounds into your face. Like, he steps in, he launches himself, he's explosive. I really don't think that works if there's no takedowns. Tyron Woodley doesn't have a jab. He never had a jab. Like, for the most part, he went out there and set up one punch, and he used the threat of wrestling in order to do it. And when I'm looking at this fight from a striking perspective, man, I'm seeing Jake Paul, who probably has more boxing tools to work with. Maybe I'm going to look crazy, But I think if you spend 3-4 years doing something full time, spending all your time working on it, Tyron Woodley today isn't a full-time boxer, right? And what is his future in this? He was saying that before I even got the offer for the Jake Paul fight, I knew I was going to box. I was like, you did? You knew you were going to box at 39 after a 4-fight losing streak that saw you lose your way out of the UFC when you were already the oldest welterweight champion? He overachieved at his age, right? He took out Robbie after Robbie was in 2 fights of the year. And then, like, I don't know, man, he kind of goes on like a barely winning run as the welterweight champion. The back and forth with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, barely won those fights. Again, it's a kickboxer. I don't know exactly what to make of that. Kind of landed hard, consequential punches, but 20 minutes in, it's like, and that was when Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was just so hesitant because he didn't want to get taken down, right? It's like, if somebody's not hesitant that Tyron Woodley's going to take him down, what's to stop them from jabbing him up at range? I don't know. And if there's one criticism you can make of Tyron Woodley, besides that Vicente Luque fight, it's that he doesn't do anything. So I think his chances in this fight are probably not very good because I think on the one hand, if he tries to come out aggressive and look for a finish, I think he's going to leave himself overextended and could get caught. And I've seen it happen to him, a few times. Even Gilbert Burns didn't technically knock him down, but he hurt the shit out of him and then took him down, right? So it's like, I just think that Tyron Woodley's durability is fading. I think that Dana White and company have an excellent track record, my man, an excellent track record of not letting somebody go until they're spent. And when they're spent, they let them go and don't care. I think he's probably spent, man. I think that they exhausted the contract by giving him every opportunity that they could think of to find one back in. And instead, it was just build the name on the way out. And I think, unfortunately for Tyron, man, he's probably being offered that one more time here, except this time it's by a YouTuber. It's not by, somebody where he's going to have the plausible deniability of this is a credible welterweight contender in the UFC. I think that at 39 years of age, he's a very confident guy, but it could be false confidence, man. He's got power. Does he have boxing skills and techniques? We're going to find out, but I think we might find it's critically underdeveloped in some facets. And, not to say he's a bad fighter, man, but some things are just true. 39-year-olds get knocked out way more than 24-year-olds. That's just a fact. Like in any walk of life, in any kind of combat, like 24-year-olds can get hurt and recover. 39-year-olds get hurt and fall over. And it's just, it's an unfortunate reality of fighting, man. But I think Jake Paul, he sells himself as an idiot. And unfortunately, man, he's not so dumb. And I think he is going to keep picking off what's the next credible threat. Because I think he's already, if he's going to take this challenge on publicly, imagine what he's doing privately. That's all I will. That's all I'll say. But I'm thinking he can actually win rounds against credible boxers near his own age. And I don't mean credible as in world champions. I mean guys that would be doing the same thing he's doing. 3-0 as a pro, 4-0 as a pro, fighting fucking bums, fighting nobodies. I really think that that's what Jake Paul is. I think he's an aspiring boxer. I think Tyron Woodley is a washed-up cage fighter. Don't think it's a good look for Tyron, man. I think that the reason the betting line has gone further out in the direction of Jake Paul says that. Open -155, been bet to -190 over that in some places. Maybe it's getting a little out of hand at certain points, but I think that more likely to win a decision, Jake Paul.
Rigged. Nah, just play. It's one of those. We all know it's a money grab, and Tyron really will not care if he goes out in a sword. He's just gonna make some cash, and there you go. So I will be betting Jake Paul with the pure intention of if I lose money. Sorry, if Jake Paul wins, I make some money. If he loses, I get to see someone I don't really like get knocked out. Don't care. I'll be happy either way. That's my kind of mentality going in. I talked about a lot of parlay pieces on this card, so you can do that as well. But yeah, 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'll give you guys a chance to plug your socials before heading out into this thing.
Cool. Yeah, I'll go first if you don't mind then, because I see that Phoenix is muted and I'm not. So my name's Liam. You can find me at LiamPicksFights on everything. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on Instagram. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys that check it out. I also wrote an article today previewing this whole card for Roto Grinders. So if you want to check out my written content, it's available for free. So let's try and win some money this weekend, folks. UFC Vegas 35. I'm feeling pretty good about it. 8 units on the line and ready to make some cash.
Yeah, Phoenix_MMA on Twitter, also on YouTube. Probably going to start getting the YouTube lives going again now that I know that I can watch tape in 1.5 times speed. Should get things done faster and more efficiently. So appreciate you guys if you check it out, and good luck this weekend to everybody betting and to you guys as well.
Absolutely.
Cheers,
brother.
guys.
Same to
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it very much. I'm sure we'll do it again in the future. Great card. So thank you guys for taking the time to come out. And yeah, let's make some money. Cheers, guys.
Sounds good. Take care, boys. Be well.